Welcome to IEA's 6th Annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency. As I guess you know, this event is one of the most important events in the global energy efficiency calendar since 6 years, if not, in my view, a most important one. We bring ministers, CEOs, thought leaders, heads of the international organizations together to discuss the future of energy efficiency. This is the 6th one, and I believe where we are today in terms of the energy issues, in terms of climate imperatives, this may well be the most critical conference in the last 6 years. Now, we think at the IEA, energy efficiency, together with renewables, are the bedrocks to have a clean, secure energy future. And when we look at the emissions, we are really disappointed by the recent numbers we have gathered. In the year 2020, global emissions declined because of COVID, and we very much hoped that with the rebound of the economy from the COVID crisis, we wouldn't see emissions do also increase. But the numbers we see are rather worrying. For example, even at the end of last year, December 2020, global emissions were higher than before COVID, December 2019. So, which tells me that if the governments do not take the right measures, for example, in the context of sustainable recovery packages, we may well see global emissions in 2021 a very strong rebound and maybe even higher than what we had before COVID. This would be, of course, a very bad news. So it is the reason why we at the IEA believe that the energy efficiency is one of those measures we can easily make use of to reduce emissions. Because for energy efficiency, you do not need to discover new technologies. You just need to make use of the energy policies. Some of them are in place, and some of them we have to put in place. Tomorrow, together with Mr. Alok Sharma, the president of COP, I am hosting a major summit, Net Zero Summit, bringing more than 40 governments around the world, all large and other emitters, which covers more than 80% of the global emissions, and we will discuss how the world can reach a net zero emissions by 2050, and I'm sure that the energy efficiency will be singled out by many government leaders as one of the key options. If not, IEA is there to remind this to the governments and hundreds of thousands of people who are going to follow this event around the world. Dear colleagues, I mentioned that the 2020 was a difficult year for all of us, but when it comes to energy efficiency, it was the worst year in the last 10 years. Our data indicate that the 2020 energy efficiency improvements worldwide was the slowest in the last decade, last year. So this is definitely a disturbing development. So therefore, we call the governments and the colleagues here. We have many leaders of the governments with us today to make the most out of the existing efficiency policies, but also to push the next generation of energy efficiency policies, making use of digital technologies, smart grids, and others. To finish, our analysis is very clear. In the absence of strengthening the energy efficiency measures around the world, we have no chance whatsoever to reach our energy and climate goals. This is very clear. So therefore, energy efficiency is critical, and I am very happy that we have gathered so many government leaders today to join us in our 6th annual global conference on energy efficiency. So we have 6 leaders today joining us in the first session, and I will start with Her Excellency Anne-Marie Trevelyan, UK's Minister of State for Business, Energy and Clean Growth, followed by Mrs. Inge Andersen, Executive Director of the United Nations Environmental Programme from Kenya, and His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Mahmoud Abubakar, Nigeria's Minister of Environment, Mr. Su Wei, China's Deputy Secretary General for National Development and Reform Commission, His Excellency Kiyoshi Ejima, Japan's State Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, and last but not least, His Excellency Claude Turmes, Luxembourg's Minister for Energy and Minister for Spatial Planning. So how we go now, we would like to hear from our colleagues how they see energy efficiency role in their, perhaps if it's a minister, in their own countries, but also internationally. And everything starts and ends this year with UK and COP26. Therefore, Madam Minister, it's a great honor to have you with us, telling us from the UK government's ambitious clean energy policies, but especially energy efficiency. The floor is yours, Madam Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As the Minister of State for the UK for Business, Energy and Clean Growth, I am of course working closely with our COP President, Secretary of State Alok Sharma, to mobilise action for COP26, working multilaterally to achieve ambitious and inclusive climate action, in particular in support of energy transition. So thank you to the IEA, who continue to be our indispensable core partners on the COP26 product efficiency call to action. And thank you for including me and for all of you for joining us for this really important event. Our COP presidency this year comes at a critical juncture for raising global ambition and ensuring that together we can keep our Paris Agreement goals within reach. In the run-up to COP26 in November, we want to drive much greater political ambition, translate this into concrete commitments, and catalyse real action and progress on the ground. So that's why, as part of our COP presidency, we're launching a call to action on product efficiency as part of the COP26 Energy Transition Campaign. The power sector still accounts for a quarter of global emissions. And while progress is being made, the IEA tell us that the global transition to clean power needs to move some 4 to 6 times faster than our current pace to stay on track with our Paris goals. This requires a complete transformation of our power sectors. The good news is that we are already reaching a tipping point where solar and wind are cheaper than coal or gas power in the majority of countries. But it will not be enough to accelerate the deployment of clean energy alone. Over the next decade, many economies will see a significant increase in their domestic energy demand. Without greater ambition on energy efficiency, we risk outstripping our ability to meet demand with clean energy. For example, in 2017, 94 gigawatts of solar generation was deployed globally, a record year for growth, but this was outweighed by 100 gigawatt energy demand for residential air conditioners alone. So if we are to meet our Paris goals, analysis repeatedly shows that we also need to ramp up energy efficiency across all sectors of the economy. The good news is that we have a real window of opportunity in front of us. As the world looks to recover from the COVID crisis, energy efficiency policy offers a multitude of quick win-win opportunities, boosting the economy, creating jobs, and tackling fuel poverty. And improving the efficiency of products that are everywhere in our daily lives is one of the best and the most cost-efficient ways to achieve this. For example, the Economist Intelligence Unit calculated that implementing more efficient cooling solutions could save $3.5 trillion in power generation costs over the next 10 years. So stronger international cooperation is key if we are to accelerate the global transition to net zero. This is as true for product efficiency as for any part of the transition. Effective international cooperation in product efficiency can drive faster innovation of highly efficient products, rapidly bringing down costs and ensuring that those who need them can afford them. Energy efficiency can also help to drive the short-term stimulus required to boost our economies as we recover from COVID-19 and deliver longer-term benefits around energy security and accessibility, public health and resilience, as well, of course, as reducing inequality. So ahead of COP26, we want to use this opportunity to raise global action and boost international cooperation through the Super Efficient Equipment and Appliance Deployment Initiative, pronounced as SEED for short. We have two key aims for our work through this SEED initiative. First, we want to lay the foundations for sustained and effective global action on product efficiency by strengthening SEED, re-engaging and working with all existing members, bringing in new members, and developing a long-term plan for action from COP26 in Glasgow. Secondly, delivered through SEED, we want to double the efficiency of key products sold globally by 2030, focusing on air conditioners, refrigerators, motors, and lighting. We will use our COP presidency to help drive political momentum, set the pace for ambition, and establish a new process which supports countries to achieve increased action more quickly, easily, and at a lower cost. So today, with the support of the SEED leadership team and the IEA, I am pleased to announce the relaunch of SEED. We want to put product efficiency and energy efficiency more broadly, firmly on the international agenda for climate action. As part of this relaunch, we are today releasing a joint statement signed by 5 SEED members who support the COP26 call for action, and we're committing to supporting the delivery of this new ambitious programme of action through the SEED initiative. We look forward to growing this coalition further through to the G7 in June of this year, and then through to COP26 in November. It is my great pleasure to congratulate Sweden for joining the SEED leadership team alongside the UK, the European Commission and India. Together and with all SEED members and the IEA, we will drive ambitious product efficiency policies and position SEED as the pivotal global institution for promoting and supporting countries to upgrade their product efficiency more quickly, easily and at a lower cost. Sweden is an example of a country that is not only leading on product efficiency policy, but that is doing this via a joint public-private effort, including through the role that IKEA has played in the switch to LED lighting. This is why we are also working with the Climate Group's EP100 initiative, a business collaboration focused on raising energy productivity to support business ambition that complements government action. I am also very pleased to welcome Ghana into SEED as a new member. Ghana is a shining example of a country that recognises the benefits of product-efficient policy through the setting of minimum energy performance standards, the provision of incentives for efficient products, and the strengthening of compliance mechanisms. We look forward to working closely with you and our re-engaged membership of SEED to develop our plan for action on product efficiency into the future. So, as we continue to deliver momentum on product efficiency action, we welcome others to join and re-engage with SEED and bring to the table the innovation, the creativity, and the perseverance that we know exists in this community, and to demonstrate the progress we need to make in the next 10 years. Only through enhanced international collaboration among policymakers, investors, business and civil society together can we accelerate the pace of the global clean energy transition in line with Paris, rapidly increase the use of super efficient products, and secure the multiple benefits for our societies, for our security, and for our public health that we know is possible. So I look forward to working with all of you on this in the coming year and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. First of all, for this comprehensive speech, but giving us a lot of good and also encouraging news, especially the relaunching of the program, the agenda, and thank you very much for your leadership here, Madam Minister. Madam Minister, if I may, just a very brief follow-up question. You mentioned a few times the critical importance of international collaboration when it comes to energy efficiency. So very many thanks for that, because it will be one of the light motives of our summit tomorrow. How do you see, Madam Minister, what are the, from your point of view, 2-3 key benefits of having international collaboration, energy efficiency for all of us? Some of them. Would you like to highlight a few of them, Madam Minister?
I'd be happy to, Dr. Birrell. I think energy efficiency is arguably the single most important lever in reducing emissions to help us meet our Paris goals. So I think that's really critical to hold as we think about this. The ambition is to double the efficiency of key products sold globally by 2030. Electric motors, lighting, air conditioning, refrigeration, these together account for more than 40% of current global electricity consumption. So the product efficiency call to action has 2 key aims, really. So it's really to drive international ambition on product efficiency policy, which is then going to be consistent with the doubling of the efficiency, and to strengthen the SEED initiative in order to support countries to help them to achieve raised ambition with those efficiency policies, so that they can also find themselves in a better place to use the energy which they will be creating, which is cleaner and greener, and in a more efficient way.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. You will have the full support of the IEA for this program and helping you to get more countries to join this excellent effort. Good for all of us. Thank you very much, Madam Minister, to you and to your government. Now, Madam Minister's intervention will be followed by one of the most important international organizations when it comes to environment, the United Nations Environmental Programme. We are honored to have Mrs. Inge Andersen to tell us from the UNEP's perspective the role of critical role of energy efficiency. Mrs. Andersen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much. And it's a great honor to be invited. And obviously to you, the Executive Director, Fatih Birol, thank you for your leadership of the International Energy Agency and for holding the banner high on efficiency, which is something that UNEP is working on. Because today, hundreds of millions of people do struggle on energy poverty. 1 in 10 lack access to light, to electricity, to light their homes, to refrigerate their food, and to cool in rising temperatures. And in a world where that technology has been available to everyone for decades, this is a global shame, and we have to provide energy equity and energy connectivity for all. That's what we promised in the Sustainable Development Goals. But in doing so, we have to do at the same time reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Otherwise, the same people who are today unconnected, as we connect them, will suffer doubly because they are the first to be impacted by climate change. So this inequity is one where part of the solution package does become energy efficiency. And so we are seeing these net zero commitments growing. This is great, but we are behind, as you rightly said, on the Paris Agreement. And so to ensure that the rising power demand does not send us into having greenhouse gases spiraling out of control, we have to prioritize clean and renewable energy and, of course, improve on efficiency of every appliance and every building. Increasing energy efficiency is an important short-term measure that we just heard from Minister Turelian to reduce power demand while we shift to renewables. And it's an important longer-term measure to avoid demand exceeding supply where the global grid runs on renewables, when the global grid runs on renewables. And it can really help us build that greener, more vibrant economy as we recover from COVID-19. Your own figures at IEA tell us that building efficiency retrofits and efficient new buildings can create between 9 and 30 jobs per $1 million of spending. And of course, providing clean and efficient energy will reduce poverty, will reduce air pollution, and will help with education and livelihoods and provide many other social benefits. Now, we are well on the way on achieving some of the goals, but we are within touching distance. And this is the exciting bit. If we adopt the right policies, we can end energy poverty and make the energy matrix climate friendly in a single generation. Rwanda, as a case in point, was the first developing country to start implementing a national action plan on sustainable cooling. Ghana, that was just mentioned, recently launched the financial mechanism that supports the purchase of highly efficient cooling products. Pakistan recently implemented its first minimum energy performance standard for lighting products. So we see really good progress, and we will hear from ministers present here about other good progress, I am sure. But many countries still remain behind the curve. And to bridge that policy gap, UNEP's United for Efficiency initiative works with governments, with regional centers, with international partners, with the private sector and NGOs on integrated energy approaches that can support markets for energy efficient equipment. Such equipment that can combine MEPs, labeling, consumer outreach programs, new financing mechanism, and environmental and health considerations. Now, there are many roads to the top of the energy efficiency mountain. The Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction Roadmap for Buildings and Construction can help buildings reach net zero carbon emission. Government and businesses can adopt green procurement, sourcing only the most eco-efficient products and services, and then setting, therefore, the markets in that direction and saving millions, indeed billions of dollars each year in the process. An example, UNEP is supporting the governments of Cambodia and Vietnam in developing these national roadmaps. In India, we support green procurement guidelines for air conditioning units and heat mapping, looking towards broader sustainable urban development strategy. But energy sustainability cannot be achieved at the country level alone. We need to work together to send effective signals to consumers and to manufacturers to increase efficiency. And here, the work of IEA is so critical. Low carbon energy and energy efficiency need to be pursued together, not independently, as is the case in many countries and regions. Regional harmonization matters and is a powerful pathway to high efficiency, reducing trade barriers, expanding the markets, and lowering prices. We have the platforms to increase coordination, platforms like the Cool Coalition, the Global ABC, the G20 Super Efficient Equipment and Appliance Deployment Initiative, and so on. And we at UNEP, we're very, very pleased to be working with you at the IEA and with the UK to bring energy efficiency in the global spotlight at COP26 through the Energy Transition Campaign. So, excellencies and friends, the benefits of investing in sustainable and efficient energy are too numerous to be ignored. To take advantage of all the benefits, we need urgently to act ambitiously and together. In doing so, we can bring real and positive change for our planet whilst improving the lives of billions of people. I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Anderson. And this is really an extremely eye-opening speech for, I'm sure, for all of us. If I may ask one question, you are the leader of one of the most important institutions of United Nations, and you have highlighted the critical importance of countries learning from each other. Do you really see that there is a potential here, or are we all a bit naive that it will work or not? Because in the IEA, we believe legislation for a refrigerator efficiency standards can well be an inspiration for another country, and we are working on that. But do you think there is a scope, there is a way to go there, and countries can learn each other in terms of their practices, their measures when it comes to energy efficiency?
Absolutely, Dr. Birol, and I think it's exactly about creating these platforms that can ensure that lessons can be transferred. And if I may, we've been in this business for a long time when it comes to ozone-depleting substances. Exactly. And how did we learn that? It is in the refrigeration business, but how did we learn that? Working with the markets, working with the suppliers, working with consumers, working with producers, working with governments, and providing that stream of knowledge that could move across. This is more than 30 years when it comes to ozone-depleting substances of work in the refrigerating sector and in many other sectors too. So understanding that it's not just government, it's not just producers, it's not just R&D, it's all of the above. And the more we can create these avenues of exchange through the kind of initiatives that you are working on and we together, or that the minister mentioned, the more we can work and have impact. And I will say that when we see some of the countries that I mentioned and some of the others that we will hear from now, such as Rwanda, such as Pakistan, such as Ghana, etc., moving into this and really putting up their hands and saying, we can do this, that enables us to transfer these lessons across. And that's what we in the international organizations, you and I and all of us, have to do, standing arm to arm to support member states in their leadership to make this happen. It is a low-hanging fruit, and we absolutely can do it.
Thank you very much, Madam Anderson. And what you have achieved as UNEP, ozone and many other international challenges is definitely a North Star for all of us when it comes to energy efficiency. It gives us a lot of courage, and thank you very much for your leadership, Madam Anderson. Now, dear colleagues, some people think the IEA is pushing this energy efficiency agenda only to address the climate change. Definitely, it helps to address the climate change, but it also helps to reduce the local pollution in the cities. It can be NOx, it can be SO2, it can be anything. Second, if you use less energy, if you use energy more efficiently, you keep the money in your pocket. What is better than that? So, therefore, energy efficiency provides a multitude of benefits to citizens, governments in the cities, in the rural areas, and therefore it is as Madam Anderson said, it is a low-hanging fruit for many. Now, we have the great honor now to go to one of the most important countries in Africa and elsewhere, a very dynamic economy, young and growing population, and an energy country, which is Nigeria. We are honored to have His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, Minister of Environment of Nigeria. Thank you very much, His Excellency, for joining us today. Looking forward to hear your comments, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. So let me start by recognizing Excellency Anne-Marie of United Kingdom, and Mrs. Inga Anderson, Executive Director of UNEP, and our technical support for the Ogoni oil cleanup. Again, thank you. Also, Mr. Sui of China, Excellency Kiyoshi of Japan, Claude of Luxembourg, and Kadri of the European Commission. Thank you, and good morning, afternoon, as the case may be. It is a great pleasure to be here to deliver this keynote address at this 6th annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency of the International Energy Agency. Energy is one of the single most important elements of our lives. Its value is placed in the middle of a triangle among nature, society, and economy. How societies produce and consume energy is now intimately intertwined with issues of resource depletion, biodiversity loss, and climate change, amongst others. However, successful modern living continues to be an energy and carbon-intensive process, suggesting a fundamental conflict between two great challenges of the 21st century: avoiding dangerous climate change and extending human development from the few to many. Thus, the need and importance of such high-level global dialogue to further build the momentum towards promoting energy efficiency policies in our governance structure and in preparation to COP26 cannot be overemphasized. Energy efficiency provides us with a variety of benefits, which include reducing greenhouse gas emission, lowering our energy cost on individual, household, and economy-wide level. It is also the cheapest and the fastest way to reduce and transition from use of fossil fuels to clean energy. Therefore, the time for action to promote energy efficiency with policies and programs towards a just transition is now. As part of our implementation strategies towards a just transition to a low-carbon economy, in consistency with achieving our climate target, Nigeria is implementing Africa's first and second sovereign green bond project and developing its national decarbonization program, which will support its economic recovery from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic through the adaptation of clean energy in all the identified emission sectors of the economy. As we are thinking of global transition, I call on a collective effort to support local actions and initiatives. Nigeria is continuously preparing for a bold appearance at the COP26 in Glasgow. As the saying goes, think globally and act locally. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, to position the Nigeria in the energy efficiency debate today. If I may ask one follow-up question, His Excellency, do you think that it is difficult to convince your fellow ministers in terms of the importance of energy efficiency and energy efficiency measures, to push them such measures, or do you need additional efforts to convince your fellow minister, finance minister, or the energy minister, or there is already a good reception of the energy efficiency policies that you would like to push through in your very country of Nigeria, sir?
Well, I think clearly we should be able to convince them because especially here in Nigeria, we can see, and just as you mentioned from the beginning of your comment, our population, and we can see how power failure, how lack of access to energy, and the problem of using conventional energy is causing in this country. It should not be that difficult to convince these ministers, including Minister of Finance. And I have seen over a few months back, money has been put into issues of energy. Anything to do with renewable energy, many sectors of the economy here in Nigeria is pushing. The sovereign green bonds has given us an opportunity to even advance additional funding to some of the sectors of the economy. And I think it should go a long way in stimulating the interest of these other sectors to participate and to join into this energy transition and efficiency. However, as always, we always welcome any additional support, be it capacity building, whether it's in equipment or financial. this will also go a long way. But I think for now, from what we are seeing, there seems to be interest towards that energy issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I can tell you that every year we provide capacity training to thousands of people around the world. And I will ask my colleague, Mr. Brian Motherway, he's the energy efficiency guru and his team, and to share the experiences in different countries, because we learn from each other. We cannot do exactly the same, but we can learn from each other. What happened in the, as I was saying to Madam Anderson, in the refrigerations, or in the cooling, or the car sector, what kind of efficiency measures can we put in place and how we reinforce them? I will talk with my colleague, Mr. Motherway, to reach your colleagues, and we'll be very happy to provide either we can, when things get better, come over there, or we can host your colleagues here, or through this video messaging, we'll be happy to organize a special training for your colleagues, sir. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Now,
thank you. We'll expect that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now, we go to a major energy giant, China. We know the decisions taken in China, in Beijing. It can be energy efficiency, it can be electric cars, it can be anything. It affects not only the Chinese energy trends, but given the size of the country, it affects everything. So therefore, we are extremely fortunate to have Mr. Su Wei with us, Deputy Secretary General of the National Development and Reform Commission of China. Mr. Su, thank you very much for joining our event here. We are eagerly waiting to hear your comments, sir. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Fatih. Thank you to the IEA for inviting me to today's conference. This is the 6th global conference on energy efficiency. Now, at global scale, we are fighting against COVID and try to get a green recovery. This is our background. And I'm very glad to attend today's meeting with all the colleagues to talk about efficiency and how it can help us to achieve our climate goals. On behalf of the Chinese government, I would like to salute and thank all the participants. And I'd like to extend my congratulations also to the IEA for holding this event. Energy saving and efficiency has always been very important for the Chinese government because it's the most cost-effective measure to help us to achieve our climate targets. It's also one of the most important strategies in our energy sector. And it's also very beneficial for the whole society. So with all kinds of energy saving, efficiency measures, legislations, we have been trying to control emission intensity, carbon intensity, energy intensity, with all kinds of standards, and of which more than 200 are mandatory. For example, equipment standards, product standards, especially in the areas of industry, building, and transport, which are the main emitting sectors in the economy. So actually, efficiency means emission abatement, and it really plays an important role here. And in addition to that, how to carry out energy management, which can also be beneficial to energy efficiency and energy saving. So we have a whole package and a whole environment of policies and measures. And we would like to see market play a more important role in this area. So China's experience is such that with all kinds of legislation, policies, so far we've achieved some preliminary results. Between 2006 and 2016, we have saved 2.2 billion tons of coal, which equals an emission abatement of more than 5 billion ton equivalent. So this is the preliminary results so far. But it's not enough. We have to look forward. How to use efficiency and energy saving, how to make it contribute more to climate goals. In September 2020, President Xi has announced China's goals of peaking carbon emission by 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. And these goals mean a lot to all of us because it can also further drive efficiency and energy saving, which also can contribute to 2030 agenda and 2030 carbon peaking and 2060 carbon neutrality goals. The whole society and economy has to go into transition to improve efficiency and energy saving, so which means more green production and consumption, which can really contribute to our climate goals. So energy efficiency and energy saving mean a lot, also in terms of resource management. With regard to next step, you may already know that CPC Congress plenary is just over and has adopted the new 5-year plan between 2021 and 2025, including per unit energy consumption and other energy efficiency measures. For example, carbon intensity should be lowered by 18%. These measures are mandatory in order to achieve these targets. Energy efficiency and energy savings are a very important means, the first fuel, so to speak. So the overall energy consumption and the average energy intensity, and these will be disaggregated in each sector and of the economy. So this is macroeconomic perspective. We will have different targets and perspectives for each sector, even each region, to reduce its carbon intensity and overall emissions. Secondly, in order to achieve climate goals, we have to readapt our industrial structure, especially for the major emitting industries. We will have more stringent policies and measures to reduce their emissions and increase their efficiency. In, for example, steel industry, chemical industries, they will go into a cycle of restructuring and upgrading in order to change the overall industrial structure. And we have to have high-tech industry and upgrade our manufacturing so as to reduce both the overall emission and carbon intensity. Thirdly, we will have more measures in clean energy transition. We will accelerate clean energy policy implementation so as to achieve peaking of carbon emissions by 2030. So clean energy development, very important, including solar, hydro, biomass, wind power. According to different regions, different sectors, we will continue to build or rebuild our energy sector based on different new renewables. In the past, we relied a lot on fossil fuels, but in the future, this is going to be more and more renewables so that we can achieve 2030 objectives and targets. Fourthly, we will improve our energy efficiency standard system. So far, this system had already been set up and played an important role in already improving basically energy efficiency. Going forward, the different companies need to have incentives. Consumers have to have incentives in terms of pricing, financing, so that they can really get into these energy efficiency measures and actions. And the market will play a very important role, continue to play a very important role going forward. And energy management in industries, including green design, green production, green manufacturing, green equipment, and energy diagnostics, retrofit, green upgrading, building, for example, green building standards and norms, how to further drive a higher level of green building standards. In terms of transport, we would overall readjust the transport system, transit system, develop more railway and multimodal transportations so that more people will choose greener means of transportation. For example, cycling, EVs. Really, we are putting a lot of efforts here, especially in EVs. In terms of EVs numbers and overall stock, it's been growing very fast. And efficiency, energy saving. In order to achieve climate goals, we need the whole society. Everyone has to have this mindset. Everyone has to change his or her lifestyle. Have this green mind in yourself. In all areas of lives, including your food, your transportation, all kinds of consumption, you have to be aware that you have to save energy and raise your energy efficiency and reduce your footprint. And today's meeting is great. Before COP26 and before tomorrow's summit, we can already talk about efficiency here among ourselves. And this kind of exchange is actually very important. We can talk about clean energy in different fora, such as G20, ministerial meetings, and other multilateral meetings and fora. These can also play a very important role to reinforce government-to-government or company-to-company exchanges. And this is very important. And the question you asked, Inger, about international exchange, for me, it's really interesting and embodies the spirit of international cooperation and how to bring out these best practices and exchange on best practices between countries, between entities, between organizations. All this is very important for all of us so that we can work together to improve efficiency and contribute to our climate goals. And really hope the IEA can continue to play a stronger role in efficiency and energy saving. So all of us together, we can achieve our climate targets and goals together. So we work together for a better future for the planet. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Su. The China's position when it comes to energy efficiency policies very clear. Your ambitions embedded in the 14th five-year plan very clear. And China was one of the first countries that came up with a 2060 carbon neutrality. And I believe energy efficiency will play a critical role to reach that carbon neutrality. And you also mentioned early peaking of the emissions. Now, I had a question for you, but you all partly already answered, but I still want to go ahead. You mentioned the energy efficiency is a very cost-effective measure. I completely agree. My question is to you, very briefly, as China, one of the leaders of the global energy markets, how China can help the international collaboration in order to enhance the energy efficiency as one of the key persons in the Chinese economy and energy policy. How do you see that?
Yeah, actually, I touched upon your question, which is great. International cooperation, as you and Inger just said, we have to exchange our mutual experience and best practices. For example, G20, International Energy Efficiency Center, and ministerial meetings. These are all good mechanisms. But due to COVID, we have to rely on online and virtual events and not on physical events. After all this is over, governments and companies can further deepen their cooperation. Maybe we can focus on industry building and transportation, investment and technology development in these areas. We can have more direct exchanges between parties. For example, best practices in terms of energy saving. I think there's a working group which has released some reports on best practices. I think going forward, IEA can really continue to promote efficiency best practice exchanges. Actually, in G20 summit in Hangzhou in 2016, there was a specific document on energy efficiency, which focuses on how to conduct more and better cooperation, international cooperation on efficiency. For example, how to conduct projects, how to exchange between countries and companies. This is already contained in one document. Thank you. Thank you again, Fatih, for your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Su. It's very nice to see you even in this format, but very good, very heartening remarks from you. And you will be happy to hear, Mr. Su, because you referred to G20 a few times. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Italian Minister of Ecology, the new Minister Cingoletti, and he believes energy efficiency, and he made it public, is a key element of the G20 presidency of Italy, which is going to take place in Naples this summer. And I really hope that we can go to Naples. The conditions will be better rather than doing this video conference. But his views on the G20 and energy efficiency was very, very similar to what you have just suggested, Mr. Su. Thank you very much joining to our event. Now we are going to a country which has been the champion of energy efficiency since, I should say, perhaps 5 decades, which is Japan. When you look at the energy efficiency improvements, how they started, it started with the oil price shocks. And one of the countries that reacted to oil price shocks in a very strong way improving energy efficiency was Japan, and we are very fortunate to have the Japanese State Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, His Excellency Kiyoshi Ejima. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for joining us today. Looking forward to hear your views from the Japanese perspective, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Biro. Ministers, CEOs, and all participants, my name is Ejima Kiyoshi, State Minister of Economy, Trade, and Industry of Japan. I would like to express my sincere congratulations on holding the 6th Annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency with such success. First of all, I would like to extend my appreciation for IEA's work to promote international cooperation on energy efficiency. In light of the decarbonization of the world, there is no doubt that both energy efficiency and clean energy transitions, which are agenda of Global Commission on March 15th and Net Zero Summit tomorrow, are critical. Since the G20 ministerials at Karuizawa in 2019, Japan has cooperated and held discussions with IEA on the global benchmarking analysis focused on energy efficiency in energy-intensive industries. On March 17th, we were pleased to see the launch of the report on the work. Japan will continue our commitment to the discussion of promoting energy efficiency internationally with IEA. Secondly, I would like to introduce Japan's next generation energy efficiency policies toward carbon neutrality in 2050, which is currently being discussed domestically. Japan's energy efficiency policy so far has greatly promoted energy saving activities, such as promoting investment in high efficiency equipment and facilities through regulations based on the Energy Efficiency Act, and governmental support has such as financial and tax incentives. Japan will continue to make utmost effort to tackle the improvement of energy efficiency through benchmarking in industrial and commercial sectors, the top runner programs for equipment and materials, and other measures. In addition, we are planning to take various measures on the demand side so that consumers can introduce non-fossil energy, such as renewables and hydrogen, toward carbon neutrality in 2050. Today, I would like to introduce a few concrete actions. First, in light of the decarbonization of power sources, we need to facilitate the electrification of manufacturing process and buildings, and to expand the introduction of non-fossil energy sources. The non-fossil fuels, including renewable electricity, hydrogen, and biomass, will be promoted instead of fossil fuels. The second is our policy that will shift demand to the timing where more variable renewable energy is generated and optimize generation in order to expand the introduction of renewables on the supply side and increase its utilization. In the areas where the ratio of renewable energy within the electricity supply is very high, curtailment of renewable energy has been implemented, resulting in surplus of renewables in some time slots. Thus, it is necessary to establish a framework that encourages the use of electricity from renewable energy sources by shifting demand to address this variability. As specific measures, we will promote digitalization using new technologies such as AI and IoT, dynamic pricing of electricity prices, and demand response. The third action is strengthening resilience. If the amount of variable renewable energy increases significantly and quickly, securing flexibility will become an issue because the supply of thermal power generation will decrease. In addition to supply-side measures, such as strengthening interconnections of the grids, we will consider the demand-side measures that I mentioned, Furthermore, to address temporary supply shortages caused by, for instance, severe cold weathers in winter, utilizing resources such as EVs and cogenerations and expansion of autonomous control systems for equipment will be important. These are the next generation energy efficiency policies that Japan is considering. So far, energy efficiency on the demand side has been considered separately from clean energy sources such as renewable energy. However, as we strengthen our efforts on the demand side in response to further expansion of renewables, the two will be connected, leading to the realization of carbon neutrality in 2050. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ejima. It is very encouraging that your next generation of policies, after being successful in the first one, I have one question to you. I don't know if it is a question about the economy or energy or sociology. When I look at the Japanese government was very successful. Energy efficiency policies have been accepted easily by the Japanese people. And we don't see this easy transfer of the new policy and measures quickly being accepted by the citizens. Where is the point, where is the hook here that the Japanese government was successful to explain the benefits of the energy efficiency to the population, to its people? How do you see, what is the reason for that? Why it was more successful in Japan than some other parts of the world?
Okay, thank you for your question. I believe the major reason why Japan has achieved a very high level of energy efficiency is because the government has combined regulation and financial support and operationalized them efficiently. In this way, the government has encouraged private companies to demonstrate originality and creativity in their energy efficiency efforts as much as possible. Toward decarbonization, this approach continues to be essential. In addition, it's very important to strengthen measures on the demand side, as I mentioned, so that consumers can expand the introduction of non-fossil energy, such as renewables and hydrogen, in order to ensure realization of decarbonized society. Although energy efficiency on the demand side has been considered separately from expansion of renewable energy on the supply side, collaboration of these two will be a key to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ejima. So, dear colleagues, the last colleague who is going to join us today is the Energy Minister of, the exact title is the Minister of Energy of Luxembourg, but Mr. Claude Turmes has been a fighter of energy efficiency since many, many years, as perhaps decades, he can tell himself to us. And before becoming the minister in Brussels and everywhere, when you think of energy efficiency, despite maybe some political sensitivities, this country, that country, this political view, Mr. Turmes was in my view, he was the Robin Hood of energy efficiency many, many years. And I would like to now give the floor to Mr. Turmes to tell us what do you think, Claude, from a Luxembourg point of view or maybe European point of view, where are we with energy efficiency and what are your expectations?
So first, thank you for the flowers. And I'm really pleased to see that what we discussed 2 years ago in the Global Energy Efficiency Commission, which you launched, this idea to have a global network working on standards, minimum efficiency standards, at that time we called for it. And the good news is that with the UK government now taking this and leading this with the SEED initiative. That is basically what I asked for in the Global Commission on Energy Efficiency is now becoming true. So congratulations for this initiative of the British government. So electric motors, yes. Freezers, yes. When it comes to air conditioners, I think for Europe it's very important to combine this with heat pumps. And when we work on heat pumps, we should also be aware of the problem of noise. And the good news is that highly efficient heat pumps have also less noise, which is important because we need to generalize water, air, heat pumps, not only in new buildings, but they will be a major part also of the renovation story. So we need to reduce the noise of these appliances. When it comes to lighting, I think it's important to understand that light is more than energy. Light has also an impact on nature, and light has an impact on if we sleep well or not due to our hormonal system. So it's important that we care also for the Kelvin level. So if we are above 4,000, we create a lot of problems. So LED must also care for nature and for health. So they have to be also below 4,000 Kelvin, and we have to integrate that in our standard setting. Then I think it's important to understand we will be digital economies everywhere in the world. And the efficiency of digital economies depends heavily on the efficiency of data centers. Data center industry is a global industry. We need to regulate this industry because otherwise they will shop around and go to the places where there is least efficiency and maybe least cost in the beginning. So we need a global standard for data centers, and we have to use the latest technology like immersion cooling. Then comes the question of mobility. I think we have to phase out fossil cars and vans, and then also later trucks, as soon as possible. Why? Because I think it's, from a societal point of view, it's much more acceptable to say to people, look, after 25, when you go to a car retailer, there's only electric, and you choose what you like. That's easier than to go to the broader public and say to them, oh God, you have bought a fossil car in 25, and now we have to raise the fuel taxes in an extreme way because we have a trouble with climate change. So I think we have all an interest to phase out fossil cars as early as possible. And I think the car industry would even like it because then their technology choice will be reduced, and that reduces cost for this global industry. And the last issue is commercial buildings. I think commercial buildings is a global industry in difference to residential buildings. So I think we should also work at global level on highly efficient electricity-only office buildings because this is global actors working everywhere in the world. Then maybe a word on the institutional setting of setting up minimum appliances standards. I think you have to do it at least at the continental level. In Africa, it was not Ghana and Rwanda who started first on efficiency policy, it was Tunisia. Tunisia had a fantastic air conditioning minimum standard. And what happened is that because they were not able to control their borders, they had very low cost, least efficiency air conditioning coming to Tunisia and raising their peak load. So if I still have the pleasure to have the Nigerian minister in, or later somebody else from the African Union. I think for Africa, and building on the European experience, it makes much more sense that we don't have standards for Luxembourg, for Belgium, for Netherlands, but for Europe as a whole. And I think we should have a standard driven by the African Union for whole Africa. Second issue is, don't underestimate the human factor. We need hundreds, if not thousands, of well-trained efficiency standard experts. So who will train them? And we must have this independent expertise, because otherwise the industry players who are globalized, they will lower, or they will exercise the pressure to lower the standards. That's what we experience in Europe. Don't underestimate the lobby power of the appliance industry. There's some good guys in, but come on, let's be honest about this. So my question also to Mrs. Anderson is, could we envisage that UNEP, European Union, US, and maybe some other countries are willing to put money on the table to train from now on hundreds and hundreds of experts in Africa and in South America and in places where we don't have this expertise yet. Then to wrap it up, standards is one thing, but then you need to get them rapidly to the market. One thing is, of course, public procurement that has been addressed. What we have done in my country is, in my country, Luxembourg, all retailers of electricity and of gas have a yearly obligation to save 1.5% of their sales. Why do I impose this on electricity and gas companies? Because they are much more skillful and they have much more money than I have in my ministry to get to citizens to replace oil heaters by heat pumps, to replace an old car by an electric car, to replace an old light bulb by an LED light bulb. So having this obligation on the electricity and gas retailers gives you an additional powerful business-driven actor to speed up the rollout. And the second thing which we do in Luxembourg is we have an obligation on each and every energy-intensive industry player who receives cheaper electricity than average. So if you get cheaper electricity because of global competition, then you have to deliver on energy efficiency, and they have also to deliver 1.5% yearly. So you need not only standards, you need then also drivers, and I would say not only state drivers, but also private drivers. Last reflection, energy efficiency should also mean that we put direct electricity use over hydrogen use. Hydrogen is important, we will need green hydrogen, but hydrogen is inefficient. So in order to get to move fast, it's all about, I think, 85% of the story is direct electrification, because it's much more efficient than going to green hydrogen. My final word, everything we will do on technology will not be sufficient. We need, beyond efficiency, we need also what we call sufficiency, lifestyle changes. We cannot have a world where we replace 3 billion diesel cars by 3 billion electric cars because we will not have resources enough in the world. So sufficiency policy is heavily linked to planning policy. And I have the opportunity to be the Minister for Urban Planning. So what we do now in Luxembourg is we plan for new districts in cities, 10,000 people in a car-free zone. Cars are outside the zone, so which means it's much easier for people not to have a car, not to ride a car, because we put them in an environment where bicycle, walking, children on all kind of one-wheelers, two-wheelers have a space. And I think we have to understand that technology alone will be not enough, and that we have to go beyond technology, but in a positive spin. And the positive spin comes from planning cities, especially planning cities, in a way that we have less cars in the center of attention and more the human being at the center. And we will have electric bikes, electric scooters, electric one-wheelers. So all the city center can be almost without cars. And that will ease people's behavior to be climate friendly.
Very much, Claude. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Just two things. First, as I mentioned to Nigerian Minister, we take the capacity training, especially for the efficiency standard experts, as a key issue at the IEA. And we have been training just in a very short period of time, more than 2,000 people from Jakarta to Johannesburg, from Johannesburg to Sao Paulo, just working with the experts there. And I agree with you, this is a critical issue, critical part of the chain. We are running very much out of time, but one question to you, if you can give me one quick answer, please, Mr. Minister. You mentioned rightly that the governments are not enough. There is a need for governments-industry cooperation. What is the magic word to get the industry part of the government efforts when it comes to energy efficiency? What would you say?
I think
So
it's
is that me? Oh, okay.
I think it's regulation.
Regulation.
So you need to regulate. So the electricity and gas retailers in Luxembourg don't have the choice. They have to save away 1.5% energy efficiency per year. And that means that they have to chase citizens and industrial manufacturers to get their efficiency target done. So I think it's about regulation. We don't have time, I think, to go for voluntary or one is moving, the other not. It's all about well thought through regulation, and that makes also business and running a business often much easier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. So, dear colleagues, it was a very encouraging discussion, because after last year's energy efficiency improvement numbers, that it was the worst in the last 10 years, it was really worrying trends. But two things make me happy and more optimistic about energy efficiency. First, the ambition of the different governments, different ministers around the world in terms of energy efficiency policies today and the next generation energy efficiency policies. We have heard this from Japan to Nigeria, from Nigeria to UK co-presidency, Luxembourg, China, and others. The second one is just this piece of this yellow paper. I asked my colleagues, how many people are following this event? Because it is thought to be energy efficiency not to be an attractive option for the viewers, but more than 6,000 people are watching live this conversation. I want to thank you very much for your great contribution, and I would like to turn now my colleague, Mr. Brian Motherway, who is the head of our energy efficiency division. Brian?
Okay, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for your patience. And thank you to Dr. Baral and all our panelists in the first session. I think you'll agree we had some very good discussions and issues set out that I think we can pick up now with our four really excellent panelists. As Dr. Baral said, my name is Brian Motherway, Head of Energy Efficiency here at the IEA, and I'm very pleased to be moderating this particular panel discussion. And if you're following us on the live stream and you want to ask our panelists any questions, particularly very thorny, difficult ones, just send them to me on Twitter at Brian or Motherway, and I will pick the most difficult and obtuse ones and pass them on to our panelists on your behalf. So we have four great panelists. I'll just introduce them in turn, and then we'll open it up to them. We have Mr. Rashid Ali Abdallah, who is the Executive Director of the African Energy Commission. Rashid, you're very welcome. We have Joyce Henry, Director General of Natural Resources Canada. Thanks for joining us, Joyce. We have Dr. Kathleen Hogan, who's the Acting Undersecretary for Science and Energy from the US Department of Energy. And finally, we have Ditte Juul-Jorgensen, Director General for Energy at the European Commission. I'm also pleased to let you know that later in this session, we have a special video address from Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson, the Commissioner for Energy in the European Commission, who will also add some additional thoughts from the European perspective. But we have four very different geographies, very different sets of issues, but what they have in common is they're really grappling with this question about how to raise energy efficiency progress in the context of higher ambition for its economic contribution, but even more so now in terms of its climate contribution. So I'm really looking forward to asking them to join this discussion and share our views. So, Joyce, if you don't mind, I might start with you, because obviously Canada is one country where climate ambition is really ramped up in an admirable way, and then it falls to you to the simple task of delivering the energy efficiency component of that. So tell us a bit, please, in the context of higher climate ambition, how is energy efficiency going to respond to what is both an opportunity but also a pressure to deliver more than you have in the past?
Thanks very much, Brian. First, let me say how pleased I am to be here today and how interesting I found the speakers that came before us. So with respect to what Canada is working on currently, we've done a few things recently, partly in regards to stimulus measures, but also with respect to what we're doing on climate action. So a couple of years ago, we released our plan to reach our climate targets under the Paris Agreement. And more recently, this past December, we've actually released a strengthened climate plan. That includes legislation to get us to net zero by 2050. And I'm very pleased to say that energy efficiency is a really big part of that. So currently we're focused on three key areas. The first one being buildings. So we're ramping up our ambition both in the residential space and the building space. And that includes more stringent building codes for both new and existing buildings. It includes a new retrofit program that our government announced recently of $2.6 billion to help homeowners retrofit their homes. And then it also includes some really significant funding for larger buildings as well in the institutional and commercial building space. But Brian, maybe what I'll just kind of emphasize a little bit more here is the residential program. And the reason I say that is because in our pandemic world, and hopefully soon to be post-pandemic world, people are spending a lot more time in their house, working in their house. You can see that that's my environment currently and has been for the last year. In many cases, as schools close or reopen, people also have kids, homeschooling as well, or doing online school. And so there's a real uptick in Canadians' interest in the residential space and what that feels like and the comfort, as well as their energy bills. And we see this as a real opportunity to sort of catch that interest, and to, add energy efficiency into the mix with some expert information and some incentives to help people upgrade their house in a way that will save them money, reduce emissions, which is obviously a major focus, but also create jobs. And I don't want to take up too much time because I know there are others, but I do want to emphasize as well that as we move forward on this, we see energy efficiency as a really big jobs powerhouse. Pre-pandemic, a study that we did showed that the sector would grow at 8%, which is more than our economy and more than many other sectors were slated to grow. And the focus that we're taking on that is really one of inclusion and diversity to ensure that, as we recruit more into the energy efficiency sector, more people into the energy efficiency sector, that really reflects the diversity of the Canadian population. So I'm happy to talk more about that later if anyone wants to ask me some thorny questions on it. But I'll leave it there for now. But that's kind of some of the key pieces that we're working on.
That's great, Joyce. Thank you. Thanks for that. And it's great to hear the extent of the ambition. And your focus on buildings allows me then maybe to jump to Dita, if you don't mind if I could come to you next, because Europe has got a really commendable focus on buildings. But of course, European buildings are already quite efficient, or at least a lot of them are. So how do you take it forward to the next generation of even more efficient buildings when you've already done quite a bit in that sector?
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you for the invitation here today. This interesting get together. So for us, energy efficiency is really at the one of the centerpieces in our overall energy transition. We have a principle called energy efficiency first, which applies across energy policy to make sure that we first look at can we make things more energy efficient. And as you said, Brian, one key element of that is, of course, buildings, because it represents 40% of our energy use. And 36% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So even if a lot has been done, we still have a long way to go and can go a lot further. In order to do that, we have a strategy called Renovation Wave, which aims to double the rate of renovation in European buildings over the next decade. And it really tries to address all the different aspects of this fairly complex exercise that is building energy performance and building renovation. And I think one of the reasons that it's complex is that it's, while the objective of doing more is a common objective, typically the action is very, very local and depends on a number of different factors. The immediate interest of the homeowner or the tenant in cases of rental buildings, or of the business that has the building, but also the access to finance, the access to the technology, the input that is needed, sufficient knowledge about what are the best technologies or solutions in different cases, to have the skill set in the labor force, are just some examples of the different elements that have to come together in order for us to succeed with the renovation wave. And the way we are approaching it under this strategy of the renovation wave is to look at what do we do at European level to set the right regulatory framework. We're reviewing our overall energy efficiency regulation, or energy efficiency directive as it's called. And we will also be revising the directive that relates to the energy performance of buildings, the standards, what do we require from our buildings. So to set some clear regulatory requirements at European level, as Claude Jaume has also referred to earlier. As regards investment, we have launched a recovery plan, the Next Generation EU, which will provide funding for investment, both to recover and build resilience after the COVID crisis, but also to do that in a way that supports our climate objectives. So 37% of the entire funding, and we're here talking about 1.8 trillion euro over the next 7 years. 37% of that should go into climate-related investments. And within climate-related investments, we have made energy efficiency of buildings one of the flagship initiatives. Then, of course, we need not just public investment, European and national investment, but we also need private investment. And so we're looking at how do we best address some of the obstacles that are in place in relation to investment, including the lack of price elasticity, the lack of clarity in the sector. There's a lot that can be done there. And what we see is that a number of European member states, as well as countries elsewhere, have found really good solutions at national level. So we need to exchange best practices and information and see whether any of these models around the financing and investment in this sector, can any of that help. As regards the skills, the labour market I mentioned too, we have a skills strategy that was launched last year, again at the European Union level, which also addresses the issue of skills required for the renovation of buildings and energy efficiency, so as to help get it right when we get there. And then, of course, a lot of what needs to be done is at local level. It's our houses, or it's our public library, or our hospitals, or schools, or the local industry. So a lot of it is done at local level, and we see a number of cities, of local communities, of mayors who are very active in pursuing a strategy. And I think in reality, a lot of the action has to come from there. But what we need to make sure is that we have a common and good overall framework to allow that action to happen, including by the regulatory measures, but also by the investment, the financing, the skills, all the other elements that have to come together for this to happen.
Thanks, Dita. It's really impressive, the range, the way you think about it. And of course, one dimension that's important is fuel poverty. We have a question on Twitter here from Siraj Panero. Thank you for your question, Siraj, about the link between energy efficiency and fuel poverty. And Dita, I think this is something that you think quite a lot about. How you let me ask you: do you use energy efficiency policy to solve fuel poverty? How do you see the connection between the two issues?
Yes, there's a very strong connection. I'm glad a question was raised, was put to that. So in Europe, we have, I think, about 34 million people who suffer from energy poverty. And it's clear that energy efficiency, improvement of buildings, improvement of the way we heat and cool buildings can help address energy poverty to quite a significant extent. So that's one of the issues we are addressing under the renovation wave. It's not the only answer to that, but it certainly is an important part of the answer. What we have done operationally is we are issuing guidance to member states so as to make sure that we know what we're talking about when we talk about energy poverty, and that we address the causes of that. As I said before, energy pricing and the energy costs of heating and cooling are really important part of that. So in addition to ensuring that we have a competitive energy market, a fluid energy market where the prices are competitive, that's of course one aspect of it. The other thing we need to make sure is that people can consume less energy and thereby save. I think one of the challenges there is what I also mentioned before, is that if you live as a tenant in a rental building, you can't necessarily do anything about an energy efficiency building, and that's where we need to make sure that also where there is where the incentives don't necessarily match, or where there's low price elasticity, that there are other incentives or other mechanisms that make sure that it happens, because you can't always address your own energy poverty depending on your housing situation and other factors. We talked about building it. If I could just maybe add that I think in relation to the building aspect of energy poverty, of course, the energy efficiency of appliances, of necessary home appliances, is also a really important aspect of energy poverty, less significant in quantity or in relative terms, but nonetheless an important aspect that we're also working on in Europe.
Thanks very much, Dita. Let me bring in Kathleen, if I may, please. Kathleen, thanks for joining us. And I know, like Joyce, you've joined us early in the day, so we appreciate that. And it's an interesting moment for energy efficiency in the US. The US, like our other speakers, has a very long history and a very long track record of success in energy efficiency, but sometimes for different reasons. And I think it's fair to say that there's a new spotlight on efficiency in the context of climate more than it has been in recent years. So does it matter why you're doing energy efficiency, whether it's about jobs, whether it's about economic well-being, whether it's about climate? Does that change your thinking, or is energy efficiency always energy efficiency?
Well, I think energy efficiency is just a great solution for all these things, as you say. But let me just start by again, thanking you for the opportunity to be here and to be part of this conversation. I think these types of conversations are really important to helping us raise and realize our climate ambitions. And I do want to take the opportunity to very clearly say that the U.S. is back in the climate fight, placing climate change at the center of our foreign policy, diplomacy, and national security. And as you've heard from some of the other speakers this morning, it really is about leaning in on energy efficiency, raising the ambition on climate. But it's more than that. It's really making sure that when you lean in on energy efficiency, you're doing it in a way that you can increase good paying jobs, address the poverty issues, and maintain energy security. So as you say, energy efficiency is just in the middle of all of that. And we're really looking forward to all of the things that we can sort of get back in gear, so to speak, the things that were slowed down in the last few years, as well as leaning in on a new level of ambition around energy efficiency and broader climate change issues. I think one of the things that was a little slow the last few years was our appliance standards program. The last team has left us with quite a backlog of appliance standards that we need to refresh. So that will certainly be one of our priorities, sort of at one end of the policy landscape. And then all the way over to the other end, we will be working as aggressively as possible to drive innovation, leveraging the vast network of our national labs and research scientist partners that we have around all the technology areas in industry and buildings, et cetera.
Thanks, Kathleen. Let me first of all say welcome back. And we look forward to working with you very closely in many ways. And of course, your focus on appliances fits very well with what we're going to be discussing in the next couple of sessions in this conference in a little while, with a real opportunity now to build new momentum around appliance efficiency. And of course, Africa is a key dimension for that. And we heard earlier from the Nigerian minister, and of course, the Luxembourgian minister spoke about this as well. And Rashid, thank you for joining us, because you have an interesting mission, not just to do energy efficiency, but to do it continent-wide. And I think it's a really exciting work program you have. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what your work priorities are, and particularly how you do make it an Africa-wide initiative, how you focus on harmonizing and working with countries together, please.
Thank you very much, Brian, and really I am very glad to having me here to discuss this very interesting topic. First of all, let us start with a very important fact. If you look at the African contribution in CO2 emission, it is very limited, unless it is about 3 to 4% of the global CO2 emission. But despite that fact, Africa also facing its worst effect of climate change in terms of drought, in terms of increasing temperature, and also for temperature rising. Therefore, I think Africa is very committed to join the continent to have this to achieve this global ambition on climate change. Coming back to energy efficiency, I think energy efficiency for Africa, it is a must. It is not something, is a privilege. If you look at Africa, Africa is home of 600 million people without access to electricity. And the system faced with two challenges. First of all, to reach this 600 million, and also to reach the newborn million that's born every year, which born in the area without access to electricity. And if you look at the electricity sector, you can find it is dominated by fossil fuel. So if we develop and expand our system as usual, we will find ourselves one day, 2030 or 2050, we are the main emitters. So we need to do some measure, impactful policy to put energy efficiency in place, and also to introduce renewable energy in our system. The other area, if you look at the clean cooking, which we are far behind, you can find also 600,000 people die every year because to use insufficient cooking facility. That means we need also to put impactful policy in terms of clean cooking issue. And this also is the same in the transport sector. So in Africa, really, as you mentioned, from Africa point of view, we have very strategic program. We are implementing together with United for Efficiency and also for European Union TAF. And this program based on certain area which we believe they can have impact in continental level. First of all, we are working to harmonize standard and labeling for lighting and energy appliance. And energy appliance, especially, we see from the statistic, is used more than 50% of electricity. So we are concentrating in air conditioning, refrigerator, motors, power transformer, and this is very important. And the second area, we are really focusing on supporting national level and regional level to develop and implement the national energy efficiency program. Why regional? Regional is very important. As mentioned in the first session, countries, they can have their own regulation. but they can receive goods from border. So if you have a regional standard, that means even with cross-border trading, still you can control this energy efficiency appliance and supply. The most important areas also we are focusing on the capacity building. In our program, we are focusing to provide training to the decision maker, to the private sector, to the regional institution, national institution in that area. And also we are working also to make this energy efficiency lighting and appliance, it is more attractive. And this means we need a campaign for awareness creation among all these stakeholders. And of course, last but not least, we are also working on to create some incentive for at least for industry to develop efficient appliance, for importer to import the efficient appliance, and retailer also to give them incentive to sell efficient appliance. And last but not least, what I would like to highlight here, it is the international cooperation. You see, we are living in the same world, we are importing goods, we are exporting goods. If we have this international cooperation, which is mentioned several times here, we can harmonize even this standard in the global level as possible, of course. So this our focus. When you come back to our program in energy efficiency, our program really is we base on targeting. It is a 5-year program. It's targeting Africa region barriers. Last year we did saving assessment for South Africa region, and the idea of the program is to first of all to find the situation. What's the real situation? What's the saving? Because in many cases, some institution or the people, they don't understand the benefit of the energy efficiency. But in South Africa, we did the saving assessment, and this saving assessment took us a long time to collect the data, to analyze data, and bring it to the figure, so that the decision maker can know exactly how much they can save if they implement the energy efficiency. For example, for South Africa, SADC region, which is 16 countries, with minimum ambitions scenario and high ambition scenario, we will find that by converting the South Africa region energy market to the more efficient appliance, we will find that this Africa region can reduce the consumption by 14 to 25 terawatt hour annually by 2030. And this is a huge amount. This is account like saving of 10% of the current regional electricity consumption. And in the term of money, this saving can make saving range about 1.3 to 2.2 million per year in electricity bills, which is something really very, very big for the country. And in terms of the climate also, this reduction can result in reduction in CO2 emission by 13 to 19 million tons per year by 2030. And this is the figure that they can let the decision maker and they can drive the policies to have it more impactful. And actually, this what we do at the continental level, and we thank the European Union TAF, and also I thank this United for Efficiency for giving support, and also we are invite others to join us to have this energy efficiency across the continent. Of course, there are some activity in the regional level with some African institution, and also some activity in the national level. in some country. But really, what we think. Harmonize the global harmonization of the action. It is more important because they can give the more impact. And I think this from my side. And if you any question, we can come back again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rashid, very much. And I think there's some very strong messages there. And of course, the focus of harmonisation will really feature in our later discussions as well. Kathleen, could I come back to you, please? An interesting question from Nazar Khan. I hope you'll forgive me for paraphrasing it a bit, but he wonders, we talk a lot about the technologies we use. We talk about electric vehicles, we talk about buildings or appliances, but maybe we talk less about the infrastructure underneath them. Is that a fair point, that we should be, if we want to make our economies more energy efficient, we should be focusing as much on the underlying infrastructure as well as the end-use technologies?
Yeah, I think we've heard the words systems here and the complexity of our built environment. So there is a lot of conversation about the products that go into our buildings and having them be as efficient as they can be and getting all the benefits that are there to be had. But at the same time, it's how do those products work within the built system, which is the building, or even the broader community, and then thinking through the integration issues that we have with our energy supply. And I think you've also heard the themes around just urban planning and community development, so that all of these things do indeed work together. So I think we've got to make progress on all of those fronts. And as we do that, achieve this wide set of objectives that we are after. It really is, how do you do this in a way that you get the high-paying jobs, you spread the benefits to all of the people, of course, for all our country, all Americans receiving those benefits, and get the carbon dioxide reductions that we know we have to get to by 2050, if not substantially earlier.
Thanks,
Brian,
please.
Oh, sorry, Brian, could I add to that? Just from a Canadian perspective, I mean, one of the focuses for us in the transportation sector, which is one of our areas where we know we can make energy efficiency gains, is really around increasing uptake of zero-emission vehicles. And the infrastructure piece we found is really important in getting over almost that cultural kind of hump of having people adopt electric vehicles. I mean, we're a really large country. We're a cold country for, 4 to 6 months of the year, depending where you live. And so, there's a government program that we have where, we're increasing a zero-emission vehicle infrastructure across the country. And we do find that that's made a significant difference as we try to up people's, sort of comfort level in the sense they're not going to be stranded somewhere in, on a lonely highway in the middle of the prairies. So I think that is a really important piece. And maybe the other piece I would add that we're focused on is, how do we integrate more renewables into our electricity grid in a successful way? And, I think one of the kind of corollary pieces of that is really around digitalization, which I think is a very interesting and emergent and large opportunity area, but doesn't, it does have challenges as well. And I think, from our perspective, we're starting to kind of look at what that means for our policies and programs and our systems, as Kathleen has mentioned.
I think that's a great point, and I regret that we don't have another hour to talk about the effect of digitalization on energy efficiency, because I think it's a fascinating subject. And I'm afraid we are under a bit of time pressure, colleagues, so apologies. We'll have to wrap up quite soon to keep broadly on time. But I might go back to you on that same point, because, again, this is something you've already stressed, and I know we're going to hear shortly from your Commissioner, Commissioner Simpson, but it seems to me Europe is making a strong link between new technologies, digitalization, and energy efficiency of the future. So does that change policy? Is it kind of just a little bit different policy, or do you think it's going to be really radically different types of policies when we start aligning digitalization with energy efficiency?
Well, I think we've already taken the first steps into that. So I think it's probably a continuation and a change and a step up in policies already there. It's clear that in order to enable consumers to act in an energy efficiency way, so to say, we are going to need to give them the digital tools that can allow them to do that. And that's really digital tools in the home. We have to make sure that the energy companies make that available, and we have to make sure that the regulation around it is clear and and really makes the tools workable for at an individual level. So I fully agree with what Joyce has just said about the role of the digitalization in energy efficiency and in building the integrated energy system for the future. And the future is essentially here, is now. We need to do that now to make it happen as quickly as possible. And so what we're doing in Europe is we're strengthening the digitalization of the energy systems. We're building on the regulation we adopted over the last 5 years, the Clean Energy Package, which really is the beginning of that. We're linking it into our consumer policy strategies to make sure that consumers have what they need. And then I think we also need to work with the sector. I think Minister Claude Turmes said it before, the digital sector, the IT sector, data centers are really energy intensive part of our economy. And we need to make sure that they engage for energy efficiency as well. There's a lot that can be done there in terms of the planning. Where does the waste heat go? Can we bring that into the district heating system? So it's another side of digital, but I think it's an important one from an energy efficiency perspective to bring into the equation as well.
Thank you, Dita. Thank you, all the panelists. I'm sorry that we're tight on time now because I really could extend this conversation for quite some time. We'll just have to invite you back for a 2-hour panel next time. We've really had some excellent contributions from all of you. And of course, it sets us up really nicely for what we're about to move on to discuss now, which is more of a focus on efficient appliances, but particularly in the context of international collaboration, harmonization, working together, which has been a theme that's been constantly referred to throughout the last couple of sessions, and I think it's something I look forward to the next sessions. So stay with us for that. Thank you, Rashid, Joyce, Kathleen and Dita for your contributions. I've really enjoyed that discussion. Before we close this discussion, we have one very special item, which is a special address by video from Kadri Simpson, who's the European Commissioner for Energy. We're very grateful to her for recording a video for us since she was not able to attend in presence today. So Dita, please pass on our special thanks for this contribution, which I think will enrich the discussion very nicely. So with that, thank you, panelists, and let's go now to the special video address from Kadri Simpson. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Birol, the European Green Deal and the recovery plan for Europe prioritize energy efficiency as a key means of the clean energy transition to achieve the decarbonization objective by 2050. Our legislative framework establishes the energy efficiency first principle. It treats energy efficiency as the first fuel and can guide our whole economy. It should lead to the uptake of cost-effective energy efficiency solutions. It can be applied in all policy and investment decisions across sectors at various levels, also in the financial sector. Everybody joining today's conference is convinced about the importance of energy efficiency for the clean energy transition and the net zero agenda. In Europe, we have comprehensive legislation in place, ranging from detailed harmonized eco-design requirements on appliances and labeling for consumer information to more general obligations on our member states to draw up national plans and policies. However, we can and need to do much more. On appliance efficiency, we strongly back the super efficient equipment and appliance deployment, or SEED initiative, that will be discussed at today's event. Just this month, new modernized EU requirements came into effect for refrigeration products. New ones will shortly kick in for electric motors and lighting. The EU is committed and on track to make a key contribution to the global ambition identified in SEED for doubling efficiency by 2030. We have committed to a stronger climate ambition by 2030 of at least 55% emission reduction and achieving it efficiently and effectively. Meeting these goals requires renewed energy efficiency targets. We are currently working on revising the EU energy efficiency legislation with a view to an improved design of the legal framework. Our 2030 climate target plan issued last September also shows that the EU should reduce buildings' greenhouse gas emissions by 60%. We need energy renovation at a large scale. To address this, the Commission launched the Renovation Wave initiative to at least double the annual energy renovation rate of residential and non-residential buildings by 2030. This means to renovate at least 35 million building units by 2030, making them more energy efficient. Renovation can open up far-reaching social, environmental and economic benefits. It can create new jobs, strengthen industrial competitiveness and lessen energy poverty. We have a unique chance to make building renovation a win-win for a just transition, climate neutrality and recovery. Finally, let me highlight that Europe prioritizes the social dimension of the transition by ensuring that no one is left behind. To reach the decarbonization and energy efficiency targets, we have to address the root structural causes of energy poverty. Energy sector can contribute with well-functioning markets that deliver the cheapest possible energy to consumers, and by improving energy efficiency of homes and products that people use. In setting high standards for protecting the most vulnerable energy consumers, the EU is contributing to global discussions on best ways to tackle energy poverty. The EU Energy Poverty Observatory and the Covenant of Mayors are excellent platforms that enable us to share best practices within the EU and beyond. We stand ready to continue close cooperation with the IEA and our international partners on these avenues for energy efficiency. It is a common, no-regret option for our societies and economies. With this in mind, I wish you a fruitful exchange today.
Welcome to the second part of today's IEA 6th Annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency. I'm sure you agree that we have already had very interesting interventions and discussions in the first part of the conference. During this second session, we will focus on the topic of super efficient appliances and products, and we will hear from both business and government on how they can support higher climate ambitions and what policies should be considered to achieve this. As you heard in the first session, IEA is now working with the UK government in the context of COP26 on the global product efficiency call to action, aiming to lift the global ambitions for energy efficiency improvements of key technologies. This work is being carried out in conjunction with the initiative Super Efficient Equipment and Appliances Deployment, SEED, led by major global economies and coordinated by the IEA. This initiative includes some of the world's largest producers and consumers of high energy consuming products and supports the implementation of energy efficiency programs across the world. Energy efficiency policies for appliances work. The longest running appliances efficiency programs with the largest product coverage have saved approximately 15% of their country's total electricity consumption. So if all countries adopted similar measures, global savings of 3,500 terawatt hours could be realized immediately. And this is equivalent to halving China's total electricity consumption. So this session is an opportunity to discuss how unified actions can successfully tackle climate change, powering business modernization while raising the ambition. So it is now my pleasure to introduce the wonderful lineup of keynote speakers of this session. We will start with Mr. Jamshid Naoroji Godrej, the Chairman and Managing Director at the Godrej & Boyce, India. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my welcome to the eminent speakers on the panel and colleagues and friends. And thank you for inviting me to speak at today's session on super efficient products for net zero transitions. Energy efficiency of products, industrial, commercial, and residential, have always held great value for me personally and professionally. I am happy that now energy efficiency is receiving Sorry about that. I'm happy that energy efficiency is receiving global attention and priority as a major route to lower energy demand and emissions, improve competitiveness, and accelerate the clean energy transition. The IEA has noted that over 40% of emissions cuts needed to reach global climate goals can be achieved through energy efficiency. Electricity use in residential and commercial sector accounts for half the total electricity consumption worldwide, led primarily by appliances used for lighting, cooling, and heating, cooking, and entertainment. Efficient products are especially important for fast-growing economies such as India, where home appliance stock is growing rapidly due to improved electricity access, rising income levels, and increasing built-up area. A recent pan-India household survey by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water noted that over 1/5 of Indian households bought their first fan and television in the past decade. Consumer demand for appliances is escalating rapidly. This reflects the growing aspirations of billions of people for a better quality of life, and we must find ways to ensure that they achieve their dreams without the consequent costs to the planet and our future generations. A key driver of appliance growth is the need for sustainable cooling. Even as our planet warms, over 2 billion people globally lack access to clean and efficient cooling. Headlines about heat waves and their impact on lives and livelihoods are becoming a part of the global summer discourse. As heat islands and global warming become more pronounced, increased and effective cooling is emerging as an adaptive need in hot developing nations. As a result, the energy demand for cooling is set to rise exponentially. By 2050, the global air conditioner market in terms of units will grow by 240% and be worth over US $400 billion. India will play a major role in the global energy demand for cooling. The IEA estimates that India's energy demand for space cooling will increase from its current 10% share of peak electricity load to 45% by 2050. Aggressive efficiency improvements in cooling products will therefore be crucial. A third segment is our need for attention to the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which also account for a very large share of employment and energy use. And India's MSME sector comprises 90% of its unincorporated industrial units and consumes almost a third of energy delivered to formal industry. And energy makes up 25 to 30% of the operating costs of energy-intensive enterprises, such as the foundry, ceramics, glass, steel re-rolling, and textiles. And the majority of the estimated 64 million MSMEs are micro-enterprises and proprietary. This informality leads to a lack of awareness of opportunities, restricted access to reliable and affordable capital, and poor knowledge of technologies and processes to decarbonize through energy efficiency. A CEEW survey has estimated that only 20% of MSMEs track their energy bills and carry out equipment-level monitoring. We have significant opportunity for energy efficiency improvement in the small and medium sector. Alleviating these needs cohesive thought and action in 4 key areas: enhancing operational energy efficiency, adoption of greener technologies, use of energy data analytics, and upgradation of processes. My organization, Godrej & Boyce, strives to achieve this in principle and practice as part of our core values that includes the environment. Energy efficiency measures are embedded in HVAC systems, compressed air systems, process heating and cooling, and captive solar system in our plants and central utilities. Our appliance division puts energy efficiency at the core of products like refrigerators and air conditioners, and over the past decade, their energy efficiency has doubled. We have joined the EP100 initiative, a growing coalition of energy smart companies, and are committed to 100% energy productivity improvement by 2030. Coming to the way forward, we must build 4 pillars to support super efficient products. Devising, deploying, and ensuring compliance with pragmatic, clear-cut, and fair policies is the first pillar. We should set efficiency standards across sectors and energy and product categories. The Perform, Achieve, and Trade scheme of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency aims to reduce energy consumption in energy-intensive industries and has covered over 1,000 corporate consumers from 13 sectors till March 2020. The BEE has also brought over 26 appliances within the labeling framework. BEE-led energy conservation has led to an emission intensity reduction of 21% between 05 and 14. I am happy that Mr. Bakre, the Director General of the BEE, is on the panel today and can tell us more about the impact of these initiatives. India is also the first country to have a cooling action plan launched in March 19, largely based on enhancing efficiency across cooling sectors. We should also create innovative business models to make super efficient products affordable and accessible to consumers. For example, India's Ujala scheme transformed its lighting market in a span of 5 years, and today 9 out of 10 Indian homes use a LED bulb. Further, smart meters and sensors can improve the quality of energy services and capture efficiency gains made by a change in consumer behavior. India has deployed 2.3 million smart meters to monitor the quality of power supply to consumers in Tier 2 cities, and advanced analytics from such sensors can provide information for optimal use and save on energy bills. Another example is India's Global Cooling Prize Challenge to develop climate-friendly residential cooling solutions. I'm proud that Godrej & Boyce is one of the 8 finalists from the over 2,000 registrations and applications, and the winner will be declared in April. The second pillar, which is the green supply chain, can influence and help MSMEs with energy efficiency challenges. Large corporates and coalitions can set up energy usage and emission standards and circular economy principles that cascade through their entire value chains. The Confederation of Indian Industries Green Company Rating System is a first of its kind framework to evaluate the environment friendliness of a company's activities on a life cycle approach for products, services, and operations. Over 2 dozen of Godrej & Boyce suppliers have Green Co certifications, and it is our endeavor to move towards a completely green supply chain. Similarly, CII has a Green Pro product rating to assess how green a product is. And on this global standard, we have been able to have many of our products rated such. And we, of course, meet many of these global standards. Institutionally, the CII Sorabji Godrej Green Business Center works with a wide range of stakeholders to promote green industrial practice. The third pillar are global commitments for energy efficiency. One case in point is cooling. Sustainable cooling lies at the interface of 3 global goals: the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. Following the launch of India's Cooling Action Plan, the Climate Summit saw 26 cool coalition countries announce their national cooling action plans. The Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and the French President, Mr. Macron, announced in August 19 the Biarritz Pledge for fast action on efficient cooling and underscored the need to deploy efficient cooling and thermal comfort at scale. Last but not least, economic development is the fourth pillar of efficient products. India's air conditioner market was estimated to be 3 billion. By 38, India's cooling need is set to rise 8 times. Residential and commercial use will see most of this growth. This presents a massive manufacturing opportunity for India. Further, to cater to this, the demand for jobs to service air conditioners will also increase manifold. Also, the Indian economy's dependence on agriculture for livelihood and development of clean cold chains has aptly been identified as a critical route to double farmers' incomes. And integrating energy efficiency in products and services is a way of life for us now in India. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you, Mr. Godrej, for sharing your interesting thoughts. And indeed, the energy demand for cooling, air conditioner demand, will increase massively, in particular in India and other emerging Asian economies. So let me ask you one question. So in your experience, what can be done in the industrial sector to reduce carbon emissions in terms of using efficient products?
Well, I think that the biggest change that has taken place is that when we look at all our internal processes, you find many places where there are inefficient processes, motors, pumps, etc., that just do not come up to the level of efficiency that's required. And I think a systematic audit of all types of energy consuming devices in the factories can lead to this change. As I mentioned, we have doubled our energy efficiency in our company in the last 10 years, and we intend to again double energy efficiency in our company over the next 10 years.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Now, let us move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Daniel Chang, CEO of Broad Group, the China. So please take the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a correction. I'm not the CEO of Broad Group. Some friends here will recognize that, but I am the Managing Director at Broad Group, and specifically at our construction sector. And the CEO will be Mr. Zhang Senior, my father. And I'm very happy to be present here in this having this opportunity to share with the panel and the audience of some of our take on energy efficiency and appliances, and also some of the work of Broad Group. So we are a Chinese company, privately owned. We are turning 33 years old this year. And in the 33 years of Chinese advancements, we have seen that urbanization is the greatest push for economic development, but as well as our change of lifestyle. As urbanization in China over the past 30 years have turned millions and millions of people from living in the rural lands, in the countryside, to dense, populous, high-rise filled cities. We have seen people becoming that they used to be dependent on natural sun, the solar energy. They were dependent on their water from river streams, or they're dependent on cooling from natural ventilation, to a more urban lifestyle where everything they drink, the temperature comfort, and the lighting, everything is dependent on mechanical systems. So I'm very happy today here we're engaging in a rethinking of what appliances could mean for the climate action. Because as the previous speaker have so well capitalized, is that the appliances, and also the chairman has said that the appliances is really responsible for a huge amount of electricity consumption. And we have to be reminded is that electricity comes from coal in most of the evolving economies, emerging economies. And coal is something that's really the biggest enemy of climate change. So in Broad Group, we are a cooling company. And we make a very specific type of absorption cooling. These are large systems, and we are active in energy management. So we manage about 100 million square foot of real estate that we manage their energy and their cooling and heating comfort. And about halfway throughout the lifespan of the company, that we have began to shift from the demand, from the supply side of the game towards more demand side. So what does that mean? Is that the supply side efficiency is that we could forever improve our equipment. But when we talk about demand side, it's really talking about a change of lifestyle or creating solely energy efficient equipments. What do I mean? There is a very popular concept of green sustainable housing that is on the more affordable side, which is called passive house. So it's born in Germany, and the passive house standard is all about demand side improvements. So before we talk about solar energy, before we talk about new renewable energy sources or yet to be invented super appliances or battery technologies, we have to first think about what is our demand doing to our carbon footprint. So Broad has attempted since the past 10 years, 11 years, to put whole passive house standard construction on assembly lines. And not only that, we have cat some eyeballs in scaling up green building construction speed and scale, that we were able to build 57 stories in 19 days. Of course, this is done in China, where urbanization is happening so fast. And it is said something like we're building a city of New York every week. So as Broad Group have sensed this urgency, then there came to be our approach to think about the whole appliance sustainability. So as I said, about halfway, we started inventing ventilation heat recovery units, but that wasn't enough. So we have to reimagine windows and walls and whole building, even as a big appliance, and how this appliance could help our future urban residents to lead a more sustainable life. And also at the same time is that this is the beginning of a new, when a cooling company is going to the world of construction industry, we're going heavily vertical, and it's very, very challenging because, as I said, there's a lot of inertia inside the energy efficiency world of our existing buildings. So as we're going down, but we think that this new industry will create more energy efficiency jobs, which will be welcomed by governments. And I think what could be a very effective policy suggestion towards the future is that for energy efficient appliances or industries, the government could think about offering supports, whether financial or legislative, towards the employees. Maybe they could have lower taxes. Maybe they could have more benefits. Maybe they could have more subsidies, etc. Because I think as we're going to a more difficult transition stage in this climate challenge that we're about to face in the future decades, it is that this will be the game and the project of not just the 1%, the most wealthy, but really energy efficiency will become affordability, and that will be for the 99%. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your great insight into the sustainable housing and buildings. And I'm sorry about introducing you. Maybe we are too much ahead of the curve. So CEO to be, maybe? I hope so. Now, let me ask you this one question. With your focus on the new technologies, including digital technologies, what policies do you think that governments need to be looking at to enable these technologies to succeed, to be successful?
Yes, digital technology, especially in the world of IoT, I think the difficulty in IoT scaling, IoT definitely will contribute to higher energy efficiency through better control. But privacy is really one of the hardest barrier to cross. As we are gaining more energy usage data, but how will these data be protected? And there is very lack of consensus amongst companies. So I think maybe this sounds too much like a control on the development of tech companies. But if a smart city or smart home that doesn't know how to protect the privacy of the data, then it would hardly be called a smart home, and that would have the challenge of scaling. So personally, I would hope to see that in the future, that governments could perhaps issue more data security measures in order to fast track the digitalization of energy efficient equipments. Thank you.
Thank you. That is also true for the entire electricity system. So thank you very much. Very good insight. Now, I'm now pleased to welcome Ms. Paula Glover, the president of Alliance to Save Energy in the United States. So please take the floor. Thank you.
Good morning from Washington, D.C., and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's really my pleasure to be joining you here today from the Alliance to Save Energy. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Alliance, we are a 40-year-old, more than 40-year-old, bipartisan nonprofit coalition of business, government, environmental, and consumer leaders who advocate to advance federal energy efficiency policy that places efficiency as the first solution to the challenges our energy system faces today, including lowering inequitable energy burdens, cutting climate warming emissions, and creating jobs and economic opportunities. It's wonderful to be among leaders from around the world, even if it is virtual, who have a similar belief in the power of efficiency. I want to start by illustrating why product efficiency is so important. Without the energy efficiency gains made since 1880, energy consumption and emissions here in the United States would have been 60% higher, and consumers would be paying nearly $800 billion more per year in energy costs. Products like LED light bulbs have helped us make those gains. An LED light bulb today can use 80% less energy than the incandescent bulbs that dominated markets until just recently. To put that in perspective, you could power 5 houses with LEDs with the same amount of energy it takes to keep the lights on in one home with incandescent bulbs. And it's not just light bulbs. U.S. energy efficiency standards for everyday products like dishwashers, TVs, air conditioners, and more, are avoiding carbon emissions equivalent to 63 million automobiles every single year. Just imagine that for a moment. Without our efficiency improvements in common household appliances, the U.S. would be emitting carbon as if we had 11 more Los Angeles worth cars on our roads. So while I know product efficiency may not be the first solution we think of when talking about climate action, the numbers show that it is indispensable to achieving emission reductions at the rate required to avoid the worst of the climate crisis, while at the same time improving quality of life and reducing costs for consumers. But to reach these necessarily ambitious goals, we need to do more than just continue the success of the past decades. We need to build upon it. We need to keep upping efficiency with technological innovation to advance super efficient products. But even more importantly, we need to make sure that these products are accessible to those who need them most. Starting with enhanced efficiency, I want to first emphasize that the advancements of the past decades did not happen accidentally. Here in the US and in many countries around the world, there has been a deliberate effort to push efficiency into the market through policy. For example, with appliance standards, building codes, and investments in research and development. These baseline programs need to continue and be strengthened and adopted in places that do not have existing programs in a way that is equitable and appropriate for that population. International efforts like the Product Efficiency Call to Action and EP100 can help make that happen. At the same time, we should be designing and implementing new policies that really meet this technological moment. Our energy system is becoming a lot smarter, integrated, and flexible, and that presents a lot of new opportunities for improved efficiency. At the Alliance, our Active Efficiency Collaborative brings together stakeholders in government, industry, utilities, NGOs, and more, seeking to take energy efficiency to the next level by accelerating deployment of smart energy saving devices, beneficial electrification, and demand response programs, to name a few examples. The collaborative is an important piece of our efficiency puzzle, where not only are we advocating for product innovation, but we're thinking cohesively about how we make all these products work in coordination to maximize efficiency across the board. The bird's eye view is critical for goals including decarbonization and energy affordability. And that brings me to the second part of this challenge. All our work to push greater efficiency into products only matters if these products are accessible. This is where policy plays an important role. Too many people who have a high energy burden can't overcome the initial price barrier to any energy efficient product, much less the next generation of super efficient digital integrated devices. For some consumers, they may not have homes that are in good enough condition to substantially benefit from an energy efficient purchase. They may be renters who have little choice about what type of appliances are in their residence. They may not have access to broadband to take advantage of connected technology. And as we all know, at the deepest root of the problem is the fact that there are still hundreds of millions of people globally who don't have access to electricity at all. Much as we talk about the digital divide, we must overcome this efficiency divide to ensure everyone can access the savings that efficiency provides. I started by saying that this is a two-part challenge, but the reality is there's a lot of work that needs to be done to overcome the baseline barriers for households to be able to adopt efficient products, to be able to afford them, and to make sure these products are highly efficient enough to have the greatest impact on our climate and energy affordability goals. I'm beyond grateful that we're having this conversation today with stakeholders from around the world, particularly in advance of tomorrow's IEA-COP26 Net Zero Summit, because it's going to take a focused effort from all of us to get the solutions in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Grover. This was a very inspiring speech, and I fully agree that we need the accessibility, and also we need to make sure that we can improve the energy access, which is part of the Sustainable Development Goal. Now, the one question, in your experience, are businesses ready to step up to advance the energy efficiency in the context of higher climate ambition?
I believe they are. Businesses are ready to step up and are stepping up. But we need to make sure that we have policies in place today and we continue to build policies that allow these products to hit the market, but also allow that all customers have an opportunity to accept these products and integrate them into their daily lives.
Thank you. This is really encouraging. Now, last but not least, I'm pleased to invite Mr. Kim Fausing, the President and the CEO of Danfoss, Denmark. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and dear colleagues. So first, thank you very much for the invitation today to be here, and to the IEA, a big thank you for keeping the spotlight very clearly on energy efficiency in general. This is really important. And as it has been said several times, this is the most efficient way to get to our overall global targets, and therefore, of course, the importance. So Danfoss is today a global technology provider across different sectors for supporting energy efficiency in our infrastructure, for coupling sectors, but also for enabling electrification going forward. 40%. Yeah, energy efficiency can certainly contribute with the 40%. with the goals that we are striving to reach. And not only can it contribute, it can contribute in a very effective way going forward. And we have a huge challenge ahead of us. And I have to say, I'm very encouraged to hear about the policy thinking that there are now around the world, and it's really happening things right now as we speak. This is extremely helpful. The good news is on the technology side and on the topic of super efficient technologies, there is a huge pipeline. We have the solutions more or less on the shelf, what we need to do. Doesn't mean that the work get done, of course, but so there's lots of work to do with it, but it's there. If we look across the sectors and what we can support with as a global industrial, it is really to make sure we have these technologies, have them competitive globally for the market. But if we today look at where we are leading in the heating sector, in the cooling sector of infrastructure, cold chains, the technologies to a vast degree are there, building on low DWP refrigerants combined with really, really innovative technology. So it is there, it is on the shelf. I would also say that combining it with more digital intelligence, which we are doing as we speak, it's a huge opportunity using AI, smart sensors in buildings and many other areas going forward can again take maybe up to 15-20% of the energy consumption out of buildings by being smart and more intelligent. So just one example to make it concrete today, when we use AI around multifamily houses, we can combine coming weather data with actually sensing in the house what's going on where, and by doing so we can operate the systems much more lively and intelligently than you would do if a building were normally wired. So the combination of good core-based technologies, innovative technologies with digital technologies can really bring us there. Newly also uncoupling sectors where we can also support, where we can see that there are areas like, and it's been mentioned already, data centers, but it can also be in the local community, supermarkets, or like a manufacturing company like Danfoss, where we have process with a lot of excess energy, like excess heat. We can today, at relatively low cost and very fast payback times, actually harvest that energy and put it back to the system. So we think we can see the good news around the technologies that they are there. We can even accelerate further using more digital technologies and continuing, of course, to develop our technologies to the next level. And just to put a line on it, this is actually what we are practicing also to make very tangible, get out of PowerPoint and into implementation for example, in Denmark, where we have established the climate partnerships, what we call them, which is basically a private-public partnership where we as industries work together with the government to show in all the core sectors that we can actually do this climate transition faster than actually the targets we have. So it's reality. And in Danfoss, we of course committed to take our own medicine. So we have a target to be climate neutral in 2030. That's not so important today, but what's really important is that we see in all these projects we are doing that it is actually really good business also to do it, to come back on that, to say we can see that we by running energy efficiency through these different areas where we cool, heat, ventilate infrastructure, where we control motors, there's actually a very, very reasonable short payback time on investing in these technologies. And therefore, I just want to second what also Dr. Birol said in the start. This is, of course, about climate change and combating climate change, and it's about getting pollution out of our community. But it is actually also good business. And I can only say, so we've taken in the campus I'm sitting at right now, that's 250 square meters on the roof. Production, commercial buildings will be CO2 neutral next year. We have not done anything that has a payback time for more than 3 years. So actually today we have a positive bottom line impact by doing so. And just highlighting this, that it's not only about climate change and getting pollution out. It is really also about doing things that is good business. So with that, it's also clear with where we are standing right now. We need to move faster, and we need to continue to accelerate cooperation. Therefore, also from us, really welcoming this chance to discuss this today. We need to put energy efficiency as point one on the agenda. It is the most cost-effective way to do the transition. And there's many very innovative, very long-term technologies we also have to work for. And we will also do that, but on the short-term basis, we really need to push energy efficiency. Our wish, and also why I'm very encouraged for listening in here so far, has been this focus on pushing also policy and regulation. That will be very helpful. We know we have to work hard on technology and continuing to push that. And I think by partnering the policy side, actually doing good business together with technology, we can really get there. But honestly, also there is a lot of work to get done. We also need to continue to do what we do in a company like Danfoss, and it's backed on the fact, if we look at the global industries we are in, when we say our technology is already competitive today, it's also clear we need to continue to regionalize the company so that we have the right solutions locally available, produced there where they actually need it going forward, where the big growth are going to be going forward. And we are indeed investing heavily in that. So we are not on track in general, but I'm also absolutely convinced by working strongly together, public, privately, we can make it happen. Good news, technology is here, and we can use that technology. We need to focus on developing also tomorrow's technology together with more regulation, and with that together, I think we can make this happen. So thank you very much for this opportunity, for this short pitch, where I know there's many fans around this call who is really big fans of energy efficiency, luckily. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fausing, for the very interesting perspective from the business, in particular, the one so dedicated on improving its product's energy efficiency. So it's very encouraging to hear that technologies are there. But to what extent does the implementation of the super efficient products on the market depend on policymakers? Or can it just be led by businesses like yours?
Well, I think it definitely needs both. So if you do not have a competitive technology, then it doesn't fly. And that's certainly up to us in the industry to make sure that we can regionalize our production, we can get costs down, we can make sure our technologies are certainly competitive. But it shows that it's very hard without policy. You also have to bear in mind that there's many circumstances around assets and buildings and infrastructure where the owners are not the users of the buildings, which is an old challenge we always come back to. And I think therefore it has to go hand in hand, policy together with competitive future-oriented technology.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fausing. And thank you to all the speakers for your excellent contributions. And I think it has been a very, very insightful conversation. And we have all heard really good, positive, encouraging messages. Thank you very much again. Now, I will now hand it over to my colleagues Mel Slade for our next panel discussion on super efficient products and their role in reaching the net zero climate targets. So Mel, please. But thank you very much.
Welcome to the final panel of the IEA's 6th Global Conference on Energy Efficiency. My name is Mel Slade, and I'll be your moderator for the session. We are waiting for one of our panelists. We hope to be joined by Adriana Lobo, the CEO of WRI Mexico, but she's having difficulty connecting with us. So we'll start anyway. If people listening into the panel would like to ask questions of our panelists here, please send them to Brian, again, as before, via Twitter at Brian R. Motherway. And we'll try and get to as many of those as time allows. So during this panel, we plan to continue the focus on appliance efficiency and hear from stakeholders about what can be done to accelerate the uptake of energy efficient, super efficient appliances in particular. So Kesuke has already reminded us of the impressive energy savings that these programs have achieved. And one of the other things that happens, as we heard in earlier sessions, is they also create jobs. So, for example, Europe, who has one of the longest standing appliance programs, has already created 1 million jobs through these sorts of activities, similar to the experiences that we heard from Joyce earlier from Canada. Fortunately, also, these programs can save us 5 times as much in terms of energy savings as they would, as they cost us to run. And they're one of the most cost-effective ways of saving energy. And even better, we have really good evidence to show that efficient appliances don't have to cost more. If we take the example of a refrigerator in Australia over 20 years of programs, the cost of the refrigerator fell by 30%, whilst the cost fell by 30%, whilst the efficiency increased by 40%. So we have examples like that from across the world. So I'm going to start by turning to Adriana Lobo, the CEO of WRI Mexico. Thank you, Adriana, for joining us. I'm sorry you had so many difficulties. I want to start by touching on an angle that has been mentioned several times so far, and that is, of course, the world is urbanising rapidly, and much of the action on clean energy transitions has to happen at the city level. But much of the energy efficiency policy is established at national level. So how do we get these two powerhouses, these two groups of influencers, to work effectively together? So Adriana, perhaps you could start by telling us how you think energy efficient appliances, particularly flexible ones, can help contribute to clean energy transitions at the city level. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Exactly as you were saying, actually energy efficiency can help us really achieve a faster transition at a lower cost. And there is still a lot of potential to achieve it. It's critical to nations in meeting the energy climate goals to have set and to have more cost efficiency appliance. In cities, of course, we have most of what we need to use in terms of appliance. So, and also in terms of buildings. Buildings also have a huge potential. And since the beginning on where we start planning our buildings and planning our cities, there is a lot we can do. For example, in terms of cooling and heating, norms on how to build our houses, which kind of materials, even the orientation towards the sun can help us have much less need of energy when we operate. And this is a very long-term measure, because when we build, we have a building set in the right position, we probably save a lot of energy during the time. So we have to establish a cooperation with the national government and the local government and work together to be able to achieve the kind of efficiency that we need. Usually energy efficiency has a it's difficult to really push, especially in our countries. We have had some very important programs. I will mention some in Mexico that have been very efficient and they have had very good results, but they were usually actually pushed by the national governments, and we need a lot more action in the local levels, and some of our states have been doing so. So in the last 20 years, our government has implemented programs that are related especially to two things: to regulations for labeling energy efficiency in appliances, but also many initiatives to accelerate the transition to super efficient products, creating alliances between local and national governments. For two examples that have been very useful, in the National Commission for Energy Use of the Energy Efficiency Use, CONUE, in Mexico, during the last few years, we have 33 official energy standard norms in the country, and for most appliances, including refrigerators, washing machines, air conditioners, lighting systems, and actually this has saved Mexico 6,000 gigawatts every year since 2018. So this kind of national norms are very important, but also some programs to replace, for example, refrigerators or old televisions that spend a lot of energy have been set by the Mexico national government. But then it's absolutely indispensable that this is done in collaboration with the local government so that the penetration of the new appliances is good. But also the second part of it is how do we deal with the old appliances and how we can recycle. And again, national governments have a very big role into this. So it's important to see and to say that the big potential is really related to a cooperation between the national government, the local government, but also the producers, to find full life cycle potential solutions for energy efficiency. And finally, in terms of housing and building houses, there is a lot that's related to financing. And I think one of the very important examples is really on the green funding. That when people are given the loans for housing in Mexico, it includes, for example, solar panels or light bulbs that are efficient. So even in a very low-cost housing, we can have a long-term spending to be able to start the housing with appliances that can save costs for the owner in a very long run. So there are many issues that are done in cooperation in the sectors that can really help us achieve a better efficiency over time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for making that important connection between not only national government and local government, but also the partnerships that are necessary with industry. I'd like to come back to some of those points later if we have some time. But for the moment, I'd like to move on to the subject of cooling, which has been mentioned several times today. And of course, with increasing global temperatures, access to cooling is a fundamental need. It's not a luxury. And of course, it's also driving the largest growing demand of electricity. So we're really fortunate to have Mr. Sawai, the Executive Officer of Daikin Industries, here with us. And I just would like to dig into the work that Daikin have been doing on improving the efficiency of their products. And like to ask Mr. Sawai, what's driven the company's desire to strive for improved efficiency? Mr. Sawai, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm Kartik Sawai of Daikin Industries. I am responsible for Daikin's global environmental activities. It is my honor to be invited to this conference, especially for this session, to talk about energy efficiency product. First of all, I'd like to introduce what is Daikin. Daikin is an air conditioning manufacturer which operates in more than 150 countries around the world. We stated Daikin Environmental Vision 2050, which aims to achieve a carbon neutrality by 2050 in 2018. If you are interested in detail, I will explain later. Well, back into the original issue. When I talk about energy efficiency in air conditioning systems, we are aware that variable speed technology, so-called inverter technology, is a key to be energy efficiency. A little bit, I'll explain. According to the result of our demonstration tests, inverter units can reduce power consumption compared with non-inverter units by 60% in medium temperature regions, such as Mexico and Brazil, and by 40% in high ambient temperature regions, such as Saudi Arabia and the UAE. I think that it is important to develop an energy labeling system so that users can select a high efficiency air conditioner in the market. In recent years, it has gradually gained acceptance by market, but it would not have been possible without government policies, such as standard and labeling systems, to help support to disseminate the technology. As such, while a manufacturer such as Daikin plays its role, I strongly believe that it is important for governments to play their role as well to ensure that more energy efficient systems and solutions are accepted into the market in an effective manner. The implementation of labeling system is not the end of the story. It is necessary to periodically review the system to have the energy efficiency standard value to be appropriate and to constantly improve them. United for Energy, led by UN Environment, is an international initiative that is driving such effort. We are supporting this activity. I believe that new initiatives such as call to action need to be aligned with existing initiatives. Finally, by utilizing today's opportunity, I'll put question or proposal to the IEA regarding to decarbonization of combustion heating. Decarbonization of the heating system is another important agenda, and I would propose that IEA makes a clear policy message by issuing another publication such as The Future of Heating for the decarbonization of combustion heating. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawai, and thank you for that great suggestion. It's something that's always very close to our minds as well. And also, I really appreciate the comment about the relationship between government and industry and how it's been important to have strong policy in place. And also, as you said, the need to update policy on a regular basis. And that's something that I think is a message that we need to share with governments the world over as well. We heard earlier, for example, from the US about how there's a need to review the standard setting that's been in place there. So there is an acknowledgement that it's necessary to upgrade, but sometimes these things are not done as regularly as they would be ideally. So we're now going to move from to an area of the world where the markets for appliances that many of us take for granted are not fully developed. And we're going to ask Dr. Marcus Till, who's president for Africa of Robert Bosch. Marcus, you represent a global brand that's really well known for leading on efficient appliances. But would you be able to tell us a bit about how you find promoting efficient products in Africa different from promoting them in other parts of the world? Thank you. The floor's yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe just to start off with, and thank you very much for also saying that, I mean, efficiency, carbon neutrality is very close to Bosch's heart, and that's why we're very proud that since last year we're actually carbon neutral in Scope 1 and Scope 2, and we're currently working on Scope 3. And Africa is part of the world, so everything relating to these type of technologies is also very important for us in Africa. Bosch is in various areas. Bosch is in mobility, is in industry, is in consumer goods, and building and energy technology, and that is more from the industrial sector, because let's say household appliances, as you just mentioned, are not really prevalent. If there's no energy, how would people buy a washing machine or a dishwasher? Or I mean, fridges are more available in Africa, but even the more than 60% of the population who don't. So if we are looking at, for example, the mining sector in Africa, which is a very prominent sector, one can do a lot in terms of energy efficiency or even greening the mines. And here I'm thinking first and foremost of conveyor belts that are very prevalent, and maybe the colleague from ABB will talk about that later. But conveyor belts are also important for us in terms of products, because we as Bosch provide, for example, the drives for these conveyor belts or many other products. And energy is one of the highest cost factors in the mining operations. So if one can bring down the costs, but also bring up the energy efficiency in all of these mining operations, that means firstly a lot of money for the companies, but secondly also a lot of gain in terms of energy efficiency for the world. So what we are doing as Bosch, and we are also succeeding to a certain degree, is talking to all of these mining houses, for example, using artificial intelligence, or AIoT as we call it, with sensor technology, putting those on the drives on all of these large conveyor belts. And if one can show both a return on investment and an environmental impact and an increase in security, it is a no-brainer. Then one can use these type of technologies also in Africa. And in general, I would rather say, and then let me give you another example that's from the mobility sector, where Bosch is also very much involved with the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers. That is not very much something which is only dealt with to a certain degree between, let's say, a customer and a supplier like in the mining industry. We are now talking about either about fleet operators of trucks, of public transport and buses, or individual transport in terms of cars. And here, Africa is currently, and that is our biggest enemy, is currently mostly swamped with used cars, which are exported from Europe, North America, or Asia to Africa, which is actually the majority of vehicles purchased in Africa but they're not new vehicles. And I can tell you, these 10 or 20-year-old vehicles, which are very often not even roadworthy, they obviously do not necessarily contribute to energy efficiency in that sector in Africa. So here one probably needs to look in three dimensions. The one thing is the environmental angle. The second one is the macroeconomical angle. What does it mean to import, export, produce locally, have new vehicles imported if it is compared to used vehicles? What does it mean in terms of balance of payment of the governments and the countries? Because that it goes into tens of billions. And very often the GDP is almost as high. And the third dimension is obviously affordability and microeconomy. So, and here that could, from my point of view, be one of the biggest impacts at this point in time, the short and medium term. We're talking roughly about 5 million vehicles imported into Africa. And the minority, unfortunately, only new vehicles, so with very old technology. And can one find a solution that works for African population, for African government, working for the world and the rest of the world in terms of bringing carbon emissions down, and then obviously having the highest efficient vehicles on the road in Africa, which would also, by the way, increase the safety of the people. So our biggest an argument in terms of, let's say, professional customers, as in the mining industry, is actually that they actually also have an economical impact next to the environmental impact. And if we are more looking at consumer-facing industry sectors, there it is very much a combination of government policies on a multinational, intercontinental level, within the government, within the nation, and we need to provide, together with banks and insurance companies, financing packages, for example, for individual consumers, that they can actually afford and highly energy efficient cars. And I'm not talking about whether it's fuel cell, battery electric, or the highly efficient LPG or LNG would be the best for Africa. In the first instance, we need to get the basics right, and later we can talk about which type of powertrain would be the best one individually for each African country.
Thank you very much, Marcus, and thanks for raising that point about dumping of inefficient products. It's not just cars; it happens with other appliances as well. So that's another consideration for us to take into account. And like I said, we'll come back to some of those points if we have time in a moment. You touched on industry, and on that point, we're going to move on to talk a bit more about motors. Things that are less visible in our households, the things that power industry that half the world's electricity goes through, but many people don't know about. So, and many governments don't actually regulate. So far fewer countries introduce performance standards for motors compared to domestic appliances. And then, of course, who better to help shed light on these sorts of issues than our final panel member, Mr. Morten Virod, President of Motion at ABB. Morten, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mel, and thanks to everybody for sharing also the insight on the meeting today. It's great to be in a group where so many share the same interest as we do in ABB about energy efficiency and how we can use energy efficiency measures to really to battle the climate changes. So at ABB, we are fully committed also to the sustainability targets in-house, of course, with our suppliers. But more importantly is how we work with our customers and how they can reach carbon neutrality as soon as possible. And I think that was thanks also there from Marcus till from Bosch. You're kind of leading us into how we can use technology to be able to reduce the carbon footprint at our customer site with the technology that we have on hand. Because the world now really goes electric, and that is it's the strong trend we've seen over the years. So energy efficiency, and especially in the field of electric and electrical motors, is no longer an option. It's really a must, because industry, as one example, accounts for about 37% of the global energy usage, and 70% of the electricity in industries is used in electrical motor systems. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but so around the world, there's about right now more than 300 million motor system that is running, most of them 24/7s. But if all of them would be upgraded to the last technology available, we would save about 10% of the whole energy consumption in the world. Of course, we can do a lot now with the digital transformation and how we can put sensors on every motor and be able to monitor from afar. But let's not kind of forget that also the core here is the small or the building blocks. It's to have the right standards on the motors and when they are installed in the first place. I often compare this with the light, when we moved from the light bulbs to LED. Lighting control is great. I mean, you turn the light off when you're not in the room, but the big change was really to go to LED. So now the change has to happen also the field in electrical motors. I think we have a huge opportunity ahead of us. If we can use the technology already available today from companies like ABB that I'm talking about, overall industry, there is new technology available with much higher energy efficiency classes. I would like to give credit both to China, but also to European Union for stepping up and implementing what they call the IE3 level this summer in the European Union. China did it already last summer. And in 2 years, we will go to the next level, IE4. And that's a standard that I believe need to be adopted throughout the world, because this is really making the difference. These are all the motors that sits inside equipment. If that could be the conveyor belts we refer to, but it could also be the HVAC units of Daikin Industry, which also use our motors and drives inside those cooling units, as another example. So this is where we have to step up. Also, and I'm really impatient as a person, so I want to see a faster change. So I believe also, and we have more technology available, so we should go to the next level there, not stop at the what we call IE4 today, but even go to the next level of IE5 and 6, because this is what will over time also challenge the industry. So I can commit as ABB, but I would also talk on behalf of our industrial peers, that we are committed to allocate technology, allocate R&D resources to drive that change. And I know then it's up to also to policies and regulators that we implement those as minimum requirements, because this is where we don't have time to lose anymore. We need to use the technology to get the real energy efficiency. So that's my challenge also, I hope, to everybody as the last speaker, that let's really use the technology available now, and let's not wait. Let's just get started.
Great, thank you for that, Morten. And may I just turn that back to you and say then, you know, you're an impatient person and you say you have technology available and you want to see greater speed. What's stopping that? That's the critical question. What's the problem?
I think it's two things. One was mentioned earlier also by Kim Fausing in his it's that we look at the total cost of ownership. So I think that often we are splitting our CapEx and our OpEx when in the investment cycle too much. So that means that people are looking at the purchase cost at the beginning and not the total life cycle cost over the lifetime of the equipment. So that is one thing that we are pushing. That is up to the industry to show that, because from a customer point of view, that is if they see the whole calculation, it's a no-brainer to make a decision, but that's important. And the second one would be also around legislation, that we make it policies around in every market. It takes a bit of leap of faith that we have to take, putting stronger requirements right now, and not because some of these elements will bring up the initial cost, but it will save over the lifetime. So it needs a bit more transparency, a bit more long-term thinking across the industries, and then also some policies and government supports that we make it happen. And then I'm more into the policies. It's not about financial instruments. It's to set these minimum requirements across the industry. Thank you for that. Maybe I could turn to Adriana a moment, because there's been a lot mentioned about the fact that energy efficiency shouldn't be a luxury, and I wonder whether she has any ideas how we can get energy efficiency, access to energy efficiency to the poorest in society, particularly in cities, in the urban environment. What is it that governments can do to make sure that the most vulnerable people in society don't miss out?
You are touching on a very important thing. Actually, every number we have show, for example, that the people in the southern part of Mexico, that is the poorest, they have the most inefficient appliances in our country. And I think this repeats over and over, and it's related to the CapEx and OpEx. So they buy the cheapest they can. Actually, there is a very big issue on buying things that are illegally imported from the United States in the case of Mexico. So how we can really have effective regulations, but then promoting and even not allowing to have to be selling very old technology, because the cost is not that different, but CapEx is so important for the poorest people in the country that it's very hard to, for a very little difference, they end up actually having much more expensive life cycle costs. So one of the things that have happened that has helped a lot is this government big programs that have helped. For example, that when you buy a house, it is predetermined that your heating is of a certain time with certain characteristics, and the financing goes together with the house, for example. For heating, this is very important. For the use of gas, for example, for heating or getting solar panels. So this part of how much you can buy together with a house has been very important. Also, the programs to help those people substitute, for example, old refrigerators. This has had immense success in Mexico, and really be dedicating to these families, because the operating cost actually is showing a problem in their lives for a long time. So how we can work together with the stores, with giving more information, also labeling very clearly, are all things that we can do together. We always have to see that there are three big things that are very important in a city in terms of decarbonization. One is really the housing and everything that deals with heating, or the appliances. The second one is absolutely transportation, as our colleague was talking about. And the third one is about residues. And in all of them, energy efficiency is so connected that it's absolutely important that, and half of the threshold for climate is actually related to electrification of the system. So we have a big challenge there, but the cooperation of the federal government, the local government, and the industry, in my opinion, and the NGOs who we have been promoting and helping these new programs, these financing programs, and how to broaden the scope of this kind of technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to go to Marcus with a similar question. You know, because you operate across the world, and when you're looking at the domestic end of things, what can government do to help make sure that the poorest don't miss out on energy efficiency? What do you think the key messages are to government?
It is not an easy question, and in particular, if I'm looking at some parts in Africa, people are still cooking with wood. So we're not even talking about appliances. So I think very similar to Mexico, the question is very much, and we've also seen that with some of our attempts to reach the base of the pyramid with some of our products. CapEx plays a huge role, and life cycle considerations play less of a role. And then, if very often these people don't have access to money in terms of banking or loans or mortgages or whatever, it's really only the cash in hand that they have. And sometimes, if you then go here in some countries and go to a bank, the interest rates are gigantic, can be up to 30 or 40%. And such loans are in principle impossible. I mean, to finance something as a CapEx is impossible. So what we are trying to do, we are developing products in Africa for Africa, that we would also partially also try to then produce in Africa. And then if we have, on the one hand, hardly any compromise on energy efficiency with the products, I mean, they might not be as comfortable from a functionality point of view, but they do the job. And then energy efficiency is a strong consideration. So if we can get the prices down to the price point that the CapEx then can afford, that is one thing. That might be our contribution. On the other hand, what governments could possibly do is actually create, and what I mentioned also previously regarding cars, create an ecosystem for an automotive industry so that people can actually afford to buy a car, and a decent car which is safe and energy efficient.
Great, thank you very much. And as we're running out of time, just one last point to dike in then. You and Bosch and ABB, you know, you're amongst the front runners, as are Godrej and Broad Group, who we've heard from today, on energy efficiency. What do you think governments can do to incentivise industry so that everybody steps up and takes a sustainable view of their products? What incentives would work, do you think?
Okay. Your question is what is the incentive for the private company?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot of incentive is required, especially for spread of the inverter, like as I mentioned, this kind of the unit to the market. Of course, inverter air conditioning system is non-inverter unit plus inverter equipment is required. And then cost point of view, the non-inverter unit is cheaper than inverter unit. Then inverter unit, how to reduce the cost of inverter units. This is important issue for the manufacturer. And then in order to reduce the cost of inverter, we need a number of produce quantities. If we have a lot of the produce quantity of producing, we can reduce the cost. In order to do so, we need some of the incentive from the government, and also, as I mentioned, some labeling and the standard or regulations, energy labeling systems. Then we can spread the inverter units. Spreading of inverter units is good for the society, also carbon neutrality. I believe that. And then also the ABB mentioned already how to make high efficiency motors. This is also a key technology of all industry because we are now using a lot of motors. Of course, Daikin is now using the motor inside the compressor. Compressor is the heart of the air conditioning system. Motor efficiency is very important issue. Then I agree with the ABB companies. Also,
thank you. So thank you for that. Yeah. I think that's a great way to end because you've talked about standards required from government. You've talked about sort of incentives to bring forward new technology, and ABB, the pressure's on you because everybody needs your motors and they need them to be as efficient as possible across the world. We've touched on some really interesting topics there, and they'll help feed our work certainly going forward. So I'd just like to finish by thanking you all for your time and your contributions. And I'm just going to hand over briefly to Brian Motherway to make some closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you to all the panelists in that last session. And indeed, thanks to all our panelists and speakers throughout the day. We've had a fantastic set of interventions and discussions, so I want to thank you all. Normally at this point, I'd be inviting you all for a glass of wine, but we live in these difficult times where it's not possible to interact in the same ways. And certainly we miss you here in Paris at these kind of events, here at our 6th annual Energy Efficiency Conference, where we can't meet in person and have the kind of conversations we would normally have. But at the same time, it does mean we can hear from these great speakers from every part of the world who've been very generous with their time and indeed coming in at different time zones. And I'm also pleased to let you know that more than 10,000 people joined us in our online live stream, so we're able to reach a very wide audience in this format. And we've heard of the many benefits of energy efficiency in relation to job creation, economic growth, addressing fuel poverty, promoting access to energy. But of course, we've also seen it in the context of higher climate ambition, particularly in the context of the IEA-COP26 Net Zero Summit that takes place tomorrow, that will pick up these themes and really look at how net zero in energy systems can be delivered in the coming decades. And it's impossible to imagine net zero being delivered without a strong focus on energy efficiency, not least because it's a readily available source of emissions abatement, as well as being cost effective and very well aligned with other goals that we've heard today, including job creation, poverty alleviation, and economic and social development. So the question really then is, how can we accelerate action together? And we've heard today from business, from civil society, and from governments about how we can work together, not just among the sectors, but internationally, which has been a strong theme since the very start of our event a few hours ago, where we heard about international collaboration and the value of working together. And we here in the IEA see ourselves as an enabler of that. We're here to work with you all. We're very keen to work with you all and to continue to work with you all in ways that we can help with our analysis and data, but also by bringing people together, by sharing best practice and by helping people learn from each other. So please stay in touch with us, reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help. That's what we're here for. We continue to look forward to working with you all in the coming years on energy efficiency and on all aspects of energy and climate policy. So with that, let me close the 6th Annual Global Conference in Energy Efficiency. Thank you very much for joining us.